The Humana Honor Medicare Advantage Plan gives you $1,680 back each year in your Social Security check. Choose coverage that helps you keep more money in your pocket. Learn more at gethumana.com. Humana, a more human way to healthcare. The Part B Give Back benefit pays part or all of your Part B premium, and the amount may change based on the amount you pay for Part B. Limitations and restrictions may apply. Humana is a Medicare Advantage HMO and PPO organization with a Medicare contract. Enrollment in any Humana plan depends on contract renewal.
KIDO Talk Radio phone number is 580-5436, 580-KIDO. It's a big week, obviously, as we get ready for the big Boise State game. Well, Kevin, what do you know about football? You're right. I don't know anything about football, and I'm woefully exposed when I try to talk about it. So we're going to spare you that. But Clay and Buck, they're going to be giving away a pair of tickets to see Boise State versus Utah State. That'll be on FS2. Let's go now to Ryan Schmelz joining us now on KIDO Talk Radio, who looks like he's having a conversation. How dare he? Good morning.
Yeah, how dare I, Kevin? Yes, but now I've got you. You and the great people of Idaho have my full and undivided attention.
And when we think of Idaho, obviously we think of KIDO Talk Radio. I don't want you cheating with those little kids in Idaho Falls.
KID, yeah.
They're kids.
Who must not be named.
Yeah, well, something they try.
You can never drop the O when you talk about KIDO.
That is so true. Fresh off his appearance at the CW NXT show, Ryan Schmelz joins us from Fox News Radio with a review and commentary of all things politics. Ryan, where are we going today?
We are going to the Carolinas and to Georgia, where we have a pretty devastating hurricane that has wreaked havoc on those states. And they are now getting visits from President Biden as well as Vice President Harris. Actually, Vice President Harris was in Georgia yesterday. President Biden was in the Carolinas. And President Biden is now expected to head to Georgia as well as Florida today.
Old Kevin Miller country, the Georgia and the Carolina territories. Obviously, he's sending more and more resources. What we're hearing is those folks really need help. What, if anything, can the federal government do besides, I guess, throw in more troops? And the devastation, Ryan, is historic.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it's a major concern. Obviously, there's been thousands of personnel that the Biden administration has deployed so far to the area. They have talked about, covering the cost of rescue, recovery, as well as debris pickup for the next 6 months for North Carolina, and then 3 months for some of the other states affected, which could obviously change if they see it appropriate. Right now, I think there's also a big debate over what's going to happen with the disaster relief fund for FEMA. From what we understand and what Speaker Johnson and Leader Scalise said last week is that it is fully funded at about $20 billion, but are they going to need to go further into that is going to be the question. There's a push right now from a bipartisan group of lawmakers from those states impacted to get Congress back from October recess into Washington to pass a relief bill. But there is a question of whether that disaster relief fund needs to be replenished before they get back in November at all.
Well, it is concerning when you think about that. And, of course, a lot of these people are campaigning and such. And then you have the idea of, these people are just trying to get their power, and we have major thoroughfares, interstate highways just totally wiped out.
Mm-hmm. No, it's definitely a concern. This becomes, obviously the number one concern is people's lives. We want to make sure people are safe and that they can get to a place where they can, not have to worry about their livelihood. But then also, yes, there's a trickle-down effect when it comes to the economic impacts, supply chain impacts, all of that. It's all a major concern.
Ryan Schmelz joining us, Fox News Radio. So anything else going on?
I don't know, Kevin. Is there? I'm doing 2 podcasts this weekend. One will be on the situation, obviously, with Congress and their response to the Hurricane Helene. But then also we're going to be talking about the 1-year anniversary of the October 7th attacks on Israel.
So wait a minute. Now you're using this beloved platform in Idaho, where the big boys play, to promote your own private endeavors?
Well, you asked me to, so I gave you. I took advantage.
My man. So I rarely can to try to keep up with you when it's time to play big baller, but next week we will be in New York City. Again, I don't know if I'm going to stop by the Big Fox.
Oh, I dare you to.
They seem very impersonal. Like Brian Kilmeade always gives me the mean looks. So truly,
does it?
Yeah. So it's not that.
I'll call him out next time I see him. He'll probably just throw me out the window. But I can try. Yeah, he's and to his credit, very talented, very intense guy. But I don't know. I think great dude. I love Brian. He was actually he was one of the first big names I met when I came to Fox.
Now, wait a minute. Can I finish? Can I finish my sentence, or is it back to you?
Oh, sure, fine. Go ahead.
No. I'd like to hear about.
It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter.
I think I'd rather hear about you and Brian. In fact, please tell us more.
Oh no, you got to finish now.
Oh no, it was just a true story. We were there, and our company, we blog all the time. So Kilmeade's so intense. I'm in the little. You've been to the New York studios, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so they put me in the room next to his big voluptuous studio. I'm in a little closet. My buddy Mateo, we have to blog, so he's out in the little table. Minding his own business, doesn't know who Brian Kilmeade is, and Kilmeade looks at him and goes, "Hey, couldn't use one of those big desks over there?" And Mateo goes, "No, man, I want to be right here." It's just so funny that Kilmeade would notice this guy just at his little guest table there outside the studio. Nothing gets past him, though. I think he thought I was a vagrant at the snack shack there. He was about ready to throw down, and I'm with you, man. Anyway, we love Fox. I was going to say we love you, but I don't want you to get the wrong idea. Anything else so we can get you out of this segment without embarrassing you any further, or me, for that matter?
Oh, no. I just say, Brian was one of the first big names I met when I came to Fox, and he's awesome.
Oh, we're going back to you and Brian again. Well, why don't you and Britain?
He came out of his his little booth there during commercial break to shake my hand and say hello.
Oh, that's not a little.
Tanya J. Powers actually went in there and grabbed him. But
that's not a little booth. That's a big voluptuous place there. He's got the corner office.
It certainly is bigger than the one I have on Capitol Hill, and especially bigger than the one I have at the White House. I can tell you that.
I've been to your White House office. But
office, quote unquote.
Yes, the John Decker Memorial Studios. Anyway, Ryan Schmelz, I have to go because people are saying that's too much insight. Next time we talk to Ryan, he will tell us what it was like to meet Brit Hume.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, I need to meet Brit Hume first, but yes.
Well, that's why you have the facts and I don't. Ryan, I appreciate you being such a great sport. I know you're very busy talking to more important people, but thank you.
Always, Kevin. Always a pleasure to be on with the great people of Idaho.
Thank you.
And KIDO.
My man! See you, Ryan. Yeah. Sorry about that. That was a little embarrassing. A lot of fanboy there. Anyway, what are we going to talk about today? Idaho, what would you like to talk about? I think we're going to talk about red light cameras. And it's funny, 5 years ago I wrote an article, and it was about that Idaho needs red light cameras. And if this guy's listening right now, he's a lot more dedicated than I am, but his name's Dustin. And no, not the political correspondent that moved to Cleveland and fell in love with the Cleveland Browns. Prominent guy, Dustin, very intense guy, very active on Twitter. And he lit me up for my embracing of red light cameras. And I've been at, again, I've lived east of the Great River. And you know what everybody hates is when somebody comes down and goes, well, you know what we did at east of the Great River. And we have these things called red light cameras. And basically, if you've been to Oregon, going on your way to the coast, there you've seen the red light cameras where if you run the red light, psh, 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 psh. And I can tell you, having gotten several tickets in North Carolina, those red light cameras work. So, and yes, do we have a massive problem with boneheads, knuckleheads running red lights? On my way into the voluptuous, palatial, competent broadcast center today, I'm sitting there, and what did I see? There's this big, massive truck on Chinden, just totally runs the red light, and there's the green light, and the guy in his little Civic, thankfully, didn't move. We call that the Idaho Special or the Boise Special, where you're sitting there literally taking your life into your own hands because you have knuckleheads that run the red lights. Now, have I ever been a knucklehead? Yes. I have been a knucklehead. I confess that I have been a knucklehead. So, and it was covered a little by the media, and I had Kent Goldthorpe go, hey, I can talk about it. Well, Kent, where's the press release? This is something that the city of Boise doesn't want you to know. This is something that, remember we used to call the mayor Snitch McLean? Gosh, I love Bonnie who came up with that name. At 580-5436-580-KIDO. So this impacts everybody because if it happens in Boise, you're going to have the guy in Meridian, Simonson. He's going to do the same thing because he's Boise light, in my opinion. He may be a very nice man, but quite frankly, they raise taxes in Meridian. Meridian used to be very different. Now I think it's just more of the same, except this guy is a Republican and she's a liberal Democrat. So Boise has decided at their city council meeting, and again, I was looking for the press release on this, and there wasn't one, where they've decided that they're going to institute red light cameras. And like I said, they say it's about safety, and then you have people going, gosh, jolly willikers, people are running red lights and getting hit. They've been getting hit and running red lights for quite some time. Now, as someone who in the past has previously spoken in favor of red light cameras, in the favor of safety, I think it's something that people should look at. But to arbitrarily, throughout the Boise City Council and, Snitch McLean, and by the way, why we called her Snitch McLean is during the pandemic, she had the police department go around to local businesses to make sure that people were complying with her mask ordinance. Now, the state of Idaho didn't have a mandatory mask ordinance, but Snitch McLean did. And, you had people that were in the gym business, in the bakery business, all sorts of businesses that, their livelihood was at stake. So they complied. They bent the knee. I can remember, and by the way, I never give this lady enough credit, her and her husband, and really Tommy Ahlquist for that matter. Kristen Armstrong, who, donated her facility pivot to help me get healthy. And Kevin, well, you're not very healthy. No, I'm a lot healthier than I was. And it was because through Kristen Armstrong and Poley and others and Chase and others through that organization that I, met my cardiologist and, starting doing proactive things as opposed to reactive things. So, having, been through that, I remember the fear of people in the gym business and how they would spend extra money to doing everything that they could to stay open and to keep those things rolling at 580-5436-580-KIDO. And then you had the snitch running around looking to make an example out of somebody. And that, to me, didn't seem very fair. So fast forward to what happened over the weekend or, a couple days ago, and the Statesman picked it up, that you had this ordinance passing that ACHD has been charged with putting in or studying. I don't know what it is. It's red light cameras. And I'm thinking to myself, I really feel sorry for people that live in Boise. And, when people come to town, they always talk about Boise, Idaho, and I go, oh, it's much more than Boise. And then people say, well, Kevin Miller, it's much more than you driving to and from Boise. And you're right. If I had a life, I would go experience the wonders of Idaho. I don't have a life. I have you. And hopefully you have me. But I'm thinking to myself, okay, red light cameras, that's a big step. That's a huge step. And did anybody do a public survey on it? No. The city of Boise really deserves better leadership than what they have right now. What do you mean by that, Kevin Miller? Well, you have a mayor who did a horrible job with the police department. You have a mayor who hired a big money attorney to come in and fight racism within the Boise Police Department. And then they couldn't fulfill the contract because the guy cost too much money. I think, and you have a media, and oh, by the way, yes, Channel 7's doing a Spanish broadcast. Whoopee for them. The Statesman finally covered it. Whoopee for them. To me, I think the majority of the people speak one language, but God bless Channel 7 for doing that. Do we need endless commercials in Spanish? That is their decision. I'm not going to be the guy to criticize them for having commercials on in Spanish. If that's what you want to do, you're going to alienate the people that don't speak that language, but that seems to be the way of the world that we live in. Everybody is exclusionary, and we wonder why we all live in enclaves. I digress. You go back to the city of Boise, and that this young woman who has embraced Joe Biden ran on a platform that she was going to be the listening mayor. Can anybody tell me who Mayor McClain listens to? Who would that be, Sweet William?
Joe Biden.
Glenn in Nampa, Idaho, with good old K. Millie. KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning, Mr. Kevin.
Hello, Glenn.
You know, talking about ads in foreign languages as an aside really quick. When I was loading up the app yesterday morning, the little ad that it played as it was loading was Al Jazeera in Arabic for the Al Jazeera News.
You're telling me that we hold on, wait a minute. Wait a minute. The Godless Corporation is now selling Al Jazeera ads on the KIDO Talk Radio app?
Yes.
And do you wonder, Glenn, why I pontificate about my future here? Why I give you the soliloquies of, well, one day it won't be Kevin Miller, it'll be Newsman Ned, and today we're going to do the news here from Al Jazeera, and here's the latest from CBS, and let's get some liberal ABC on here, everybody.
But that's not really why I called in.
Look, I just did a great bit, and it's like, yeah, hey, thanks, Kevin. Let me get back to what I want to talk to. Yes, go ahead. Thank you, Glenn.
I haven't always lived in Idaho. I've moved around several places. One of the places that I lived was about 10 years in Arizona. And some of the cities there in the suburbs of Phoenix put in red light cameras. They even put speed cameras on the highway or the freeway through town. And here's the problem with the red light cameras and the speed cameras. Everybody knows where they're at, and they can't cover every place. And so it may help with red light running at certain intersections where they put the cameras up, but all the other intersections where there's no cameras, people still run the red lights. The same thing was with the speed cameras. Everybody would speed till they got to where the camera was. They would slow down, go past the camera, and then speed up again. And the way that the laws are, if you get a red light camera ticket, it is very hard to fight. And I can give you an example because my wife got one. The way that the city bus stops were was you would have your intersection, and then right after the intersection, they would have a bus stop. And there was traffic. And there was a bus that was 3 or 4 cars ahead of my wife. And everybody's going through the intersection following the bus. And the bus stopped at the bus stop to pick somebody up, so my wife was stuck right at the edge of the intersection. And when the bus started pulling forward was when the light turned red, and my wife got a red light ticket. But there was no practical way to fight it. Just the way the system is, you get a ticket, you're done. There's really no good way to fight it. So not all those tickets necessarily are legitimate. And some of the other areas, the articles that I'm reading, they changed the yellow light timing. So instead of like a 4-second yellow light where that camera was, it went to a 3-second yellow light, supposedly in effect to catch people. So the other problem that they had when I was in Arizona with the red light cameras was I think 75% of the money in the contract went to the company that ran the red light cameras, and it really didn't help the city with funds at all. So they eventually took them all back out, and they took out the speed cameras on the highways. So there is a problem with red light running, I will say that. But I've been sitting at a red light right next to a police officer, sees somebody run the red light, and the police officer does nothing. So it seems like the police be more diligent in enforcing the laws. I've been in somebody at a red light, police next to me, and the person in front of me is talking on their handheld cell phone, which is against the law. And the cop just sits there and looks at him and doesn't do anything. So, you know, it's just like people talk about gun laws. If you're not going to enforce the law, why make the law? and then complain when it doesn't work.
Well, no, I know all about the red light cameras, so I'm with you.
So, I mean, Boise can do what they want. That they're accountable to the people of Boise. If the people of Boise don't like the red light cameras, they can vote out the city council and take them out. But I've seen it in person, and I don't think it's a good idea.
Glenn from Nampa, thank you for the call. Thank you for the tag on Twitter. By the way, Glenn and Nampa on Twitter. Everybody go there right now.
Thanks,
and give
Kevin.
him a follow.
Thanks for the time, and thanks for the platform.
Liberal Steve's next. You want to say anything to him?
Not really.
Fair enough. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Glenn. Liberal Steve joins us now with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Liberal Steve.
Buenos dias, Idaho.
Wow.
Oh, that's right. You don't run commercials with Spanish up there, do you?
No, we love America here.
Oh, they speak 30 different languages down here. You go to the airport, I can't even find the sign that's got English on it.
You know, if I had my way, and this goes back to, what were you doing 30 years ago?
Same thing you were going through.
What?
Trying to change everything in the world.
Yeah, well, 30 years ago when I was a baby talk show host, one of my pet peeves was there should be no multiple languages. You come here, no hola, it's hello. No Wiedersehen, it's hello. It's American. We don't speak English, we speak American. Now, maybe you, my multilingual liberal friend, you like that stuff, but no babble rabble here, buddy. Bub.
Well, I got to tell you, I did buy the app. You actually got to buy the app to get the good one.
What good one?
That on my other phone that I keep in my top pocket, you turn the app on and it interprets everything. You could be standing next to me and be speaking in Italian.
Hey,
Norwegian.
hold on, that's my Swedish. Oh, too much Muppet Show.
I'm the cook here and all.
That's how you talk in the Dakotas. Your little baby talk. Your little Minnesotan.
Oh, yeah, you betcha, by golly.
Yo, you
betcha, by golly.
This show really needs to. Grab the best of. This is not going to be a good day for us.
I'll tell you what. What.
Oh, hold on. Madam Vice President, what's to you? Oh, go ahead and tell me why.
Red lights are a moneymaker. That's the only reason the cameras are a moneymaker. That's the only reason they're up there. They're not for safety or anything else. The average state, well, let's say Illinois, average year in Illinois, they make $20 million on red light cameras, on the fines. So it's not about safety. If it was about safety, would they sell beer at the corner grocery store?
Well, if it was about safety, would they be selling beer at the stadium? It's about making money.
Right, so everybody can drive home drunk and then make more money putting you in jail. If they do like Germany, you don't drink and drive. You go to jail for 5 years if you get a DUI. And they don't fool around there. And here in the United States, where we lose 20,000, lay them out on the highway, heel to heel. Human beings, babies, adults, all shapes and sizes, lay them out. 20,000. We lost 3,000 in 911, but we lose 20,000 on an average year by drunk drivers and impaired drivers. But do we really do anything about it? Do we throw the key away, or do we just slap their hands like Butch Otter and say, you can even run for governor after you had a DUI, and you can become governor? That's what makes this country sick. Hypocrites.
I thought we were talking about red light cameras.
Well, red light cameras just a moneymaker. Anything to do with, it's not about safety.
Aren't you a capitalist?
You're darn right. And I can't help that. It's just a fact. If you're going to be safe, walk.
No, dude, you can almost get hit there, too. All right. Anything else there, Timmy?
I can't go through Delaware. I actually have tickets there in Delaware that I could be pulled over and thrown in the slammer for a while that I need to pay it.
Why don't we take a tour to Delaware? We make sure that you get some time with the boys. I know you like hanging with the boys.
Well, I could say hi to Joey. He hangs out there a lot now, I hear.
Liberal Steve, thank you for the call.
You stay fired up and have a great day. I got to go make it happen already. Can you believe that?
Yeah, make it happen, buddy.
Okay, stay fired up. Bye.
Oh, bye-bye. Thank you, our great friend Liberal Steve. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Quick break, Paulie. We'll be back in literally a minute. Paulie in Nampa. Good morning, Paulie.
Morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Paulie.
Top of the morning to you, sir.
And right back at you. What can we do for you?
Hola.
Hola, amigo. Hola. Or is it hola?
I guess talking about the Israeli war.
Or is it ole, 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 ole? I'm sorry.
Frito-Lay commercial. They had to take that off the air. They said it was racist.
Oof.
That was about 40 years ago or so. Yeah. I don't know. You can find racism just about anywhere. I'm going to see that I'm thinking about seeing that Matt Walsh movie. I've been told it's kind of funny because it's so ridiculous. It's the sublime laughing at itself. And, yeah, you can find it everywhere. But this whole animal eating thing, Kevin, I grew up in a small fishing village on the California coast that at one time was thriving and vibrant. And they still had a lot of fish in that water. And in 1974, 73, 74, the Vietnam War ended. And they had some people that they had to take care of by bringing them to the United States, like Afghanistan, like you name it, nations that we brought in. Well, they brought in some people that were from the other side of the planet that didn't know laws, didn't know regulations. They could fish for whatever they wanted to and keep. Well, they got tired of the fish, and so where'd they go? They started going into the neighborhoods, and cats and dogs started missing. This is a true story. The cats and dogs of that community started missing. And there was an uproar because people's pets were being let out to go and do their thing and not come back. And it was quite an epidemic. Nothing was written about it in the papers, but, it was common knowledge with your neighbors that you just don't let your animals out after dark. And if at all, try not to let them out for a very long period. And so this whole thing about the deal that's going on back in Ohio.
I thought you wanted to talk about the Israeli-Hamas war.
Well, I changed
you're shifty today.
Shifty ship, yeah.
Yeah, I got to be careful how you enunciate that one.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at that. So to make a long story even shorter, if at all possible, I could totally see that happening back east in Ohio with the immigrants that they've got going on, that they gave a free pass in and a nice plane ride right in there.
Yeah.
And, when you don't know what the laws are and what the rules are, and you don't really care either way because you got a free trip, and you don't have to work till you get a check in your mailbox every week or month or whatever it is. You have no respect for where you live.
No, you're right about that, bub. Yeah.
I could see that happening. As far as this Israeli war is concerned.
Oh, wait a minute. We're back on that now?
Yeah. When you're fighting a war on 7 fronts, it's not going to happen overnight that you take over total control of that peninsula down there. And I don't see that happening. I don't think they want control over that. I think they want to live in peace and quiet and harmony. And, obviously there's some people that don't want to live that way. And so they want to do them in. And they've been trying to do them in for 4,000 years. If you think it's going to stop after this war's over, it ain't. So.
Well, that's one long fishy story, Paulie. Thank you for the call.
True, though.
I believe.
Kev.
Thank you, Paulie. You have a great day.
You too, bye.
Bye-bye. There we have it, our friend Paulie. Appreciate everybody calling in. Don't forget, Clay and Buck, they're going to give away a pair of tickets to Boise State. If you'd like to go see Boise State play Utah State. And then they're going to be, boy, they got a tough gig. They're going to Hawaii. In Hawaii, they're rebuilding the Aloha Bowl, Aloha Stadium. So they're playing in, what is it? I don't want to say it's like a high school field, but it's not a big stadium. So they go to Hawaii. Boy, that's a tough one. What's your business trip? Oh, I'm going to Hawaii. Aloha, Mahoya, whatever. So good for them. But you can win tickets by listening to Clay and Buck here. Listen for the cue to call. Probably will happen tomorrow. Not probably, will happen tomorrow. When you're the correct caller, you're going to go see Boise State, courtesy of Kevin Miller and KIDO Talk Radio. Hey, by the way, speaking of wanting to make sure that you have everything rolling, this is a personal one for a lot of us, especially those of us in the talk radio world, the spoken word world, because it's all about hearing. What would happen if you couldn't hear? Don't you hate that? Yeah, sometimes we lose our hair, we lose this, we lose that, but hearing loss is, man, we don't want you to lose your hearing. We need you. If you know someone who's struggling with hearing loss, then here's a quick message from our friends at Hearing Connection. Don't wait any longer to get the help you need. If left untreated, it can lead to social isolation and depression, and even lead to an increased risk of developing dementia. Hearing Connection is now offering a 30-day risk-free trial of the latest and greatest hearing aids. They call it the Signia AX. Don't let hearing loss hold you back any longer. Call now for a free evaluation and a risk-free trial of the new Signia AX. Call 208-488-3255 today and start enjoying life to the fullest again. That's Hearing Connection at 208-488-3255. Hearing Connection, their number, 208-488-3255. Please tell them Kevin Miller sent you. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Quick look at traffic. Dave Burnett is standing by. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Kevin. From the G&G Installation Studio, traffic looking good out of Candy County into Ada County. Still looking at 15 minutes as you're coming from north side down to the connector area, another 5 into downtown Boise. You do have construction continuing on State Street at 18th and then near the Capitol where it's blocked off. Bargain shoppers, did you know that there's a brand new grocery outlet in Meridian? Find amazing deals on fresh produce, meat, dairy, and wine. Grocery Outlet Bargain Market, now open on Eagle Road, north of Ustick. That's your traffic now on KIDL.
580 KIDO. We are a faith-based program. We're very proud of that. We want to make sure that we don't forget the people of Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, the Carolinas, North Carolina, South Carolina, that are struggling right now. Here is Brian Kemp said he had to call the White House after only 11 of 9 counties that were hit were not included in FEMA disasters, the declarations, the rural counties neglected. By the way, the vice president, where was she?
I was being holistic.
She was at a fundraiser during the storm.
When the first emergency declarations came down, there was only 11 counties in that. A lot of people were outraged, including me, because there was such devastation in up to 90 counties. So we called the White House. We spoke to the president's chief of staff, the FEMA administrator, and said, "Look, you're sending the signal that you're not paying attention to some of these rural communities."
Yeah, why? Because the rural communities are going to be voting for who? Donald John Trump, who did go to Georgia, who did go to these things, who did do these things. It wasn't Kamala and everybody else. We need to swarm that area like we swarmed Ukraine and everybody else. And oh, by the way, isn't it interesting that the vice president says that we should send money to the folks in Georgia.
And the federal relief and assistance that we have been providing has included FEMA providing $750 for folks who need immediate needs being met.
So we can send billions to Ukraine, and we're going to give you $750? Does that buy you 4 nights at the Holiday Inn in Augusta, Georgia? Are you crazy? And look, people are seeing that she is not comfortable. She is not an empathetic figure. And oh, by the way, Joe Biden, he's struggling to sit down in a chair. Jim in Meridian with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Jim.
Top of the morning, Kevin.
And to you.
I don't know if you listened to Lars' show last night, but about 6:30, if that's on tape someplace, there's a fellow that was talking to him about this strike, and he asked him if he thought the Biden administration would step in and try to settle this strike like Bush did, and he said, well, no, probably not for a while, because the Democrats are really counting on the union vote for the election this year. So I just want to say to all the folks that are driving on the road this morning going to work, and you're thinking about voting for Democrats this year, to take a look at your paycheck. And these guys are bargaining for a 77% raise and absolutely guaranteed that there will be no automation assigned to their job over the next, 4 or 5 years, something like that. And the Democratic Party is using us as the bargaining chip for those 55,000 votes.
Oh, no, I totally agree with you. And I also think that Biden is mad, so he's not going to force them back to work.
No, because he wants the union votes.
Mm-hmm.
So when Kamala and Joe and all that group of folks talk about all the benefits that they're going to do for the middle class, and you just commented on the $750, you know, they don't want the money. They need supplies and medical care and stuff like that, the things that people are providing for each other down there already. But this is something to think today, folks, about.
Well, you know what I hear? I think they're going to start mandating that we reuse toilet paper.
I wouldn't doubt that a bit.
Yeah,
Steve Bob talked about that yesterday.
Right, so we don't need new toilet paper. We're just going to reuse the old ones. It's
recycle, recycle and not replace.
Right, you just keep the old stuff hanging near the bathtub and use the other side.
Kevin, I gotta go.
Thank you.
I gotta go.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that.
Day.
You too. You know, if you can't laugh, it's too early to be angry. That's the new slogan. Too early to be angry. Kevin Miller in the morning. KIDO Talk Radio. Even Joe Biden can agree on that, right, Joe?
Whoa.
Okay, hopefully this is going to make you laugh. And by the way, we are going to get back to red light cameras. We've got a long way to go. We're just getting started here. And, when you think that the world is against us, when you think the world's going to end, you've got me, you've got Glenn, you've got Sweet William. I know it's not a very masculine name. You've got Bo, you got Liberal Steve. We're all in this together, getting to work, getting home. So I hope this makes you laugh. Remember Minnesota Waltz, Tim Walz, saying that he's friends with school shooters? And I know school shooters. School shooters were a friend of mine. Remember Joe Biden with when he was hanging out with Flaptrap and Fleaball, and he was all about what was he going to do. He was, the little kids on his legs, and he loved little kids on his legs, and there's nothing wrong with little kids on his legs. I could just all of a sudden see Tim Walz going, and I liked people, and I like school shooters, and they're friends of mine. But I mean, who says they're friends with school shooters? It's like Joe Biden and his hairy legs.
And by the way, I sit on the stand, and it get hot. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun. And the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. They look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap.
Okay, so this is the version of that. The reporters asked Walz, hey, man, can you clarify you befriended school shooters, Walz?
Do you want to clarify the comments that you made about school shooters?
Yeah, and look, you got to see me. These folks know me. I'm super passionate about this. The question come up about school shooting, we're talking about everything except school shooting. And I sat as a member of Congress with the Sandy Hook parents, and it was a profound movement. David Hogg is a good friend of mine. You have seen me do this. I was talking about being people where there are school shooters, and I need to be more specific on that, but I am passionate about this. This one for my wife.
And I know school shooters. Yet what the dummy doesn't get, and it's not a Saturday Night Live bit, what the dummy doesn't get is he needs to clarify school shooting victims. The school shooters are the bad guys. The school shooters are the ones that we want to stop. The school shooters are the bad people. But you got Minnesota Waltz going, yeah, I'm passionate about this. And in this video, they must be in Pennsylvania. So you have Fetterman without his looking like a massive Andre the Giant King Kong Bundy combination with an actual shirt that buttons down. And he's got his hands on his hip looking at Waltz going, what the heck is going on with this guy? They could have had Josh Shapiro. Now, I'm not down with Josh Shapiro. Josh Shapiro apparently served in the Israeli military. Josh Shapiro is a competent cat. And can you imagine he and J.D. Vance going toe-to-toe? Both lawyers, both this, both that. And instead, and thankfully, thank you, Kamala. Well, you're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. You know, it's funny on social media. They have this thing where they start off with a picture of Obama.
You're listening to a Kevin Miller replay.
Exactly. No. Sweet William, could you do me a favor? He thinks that's funny. Could you please play the clip?
Thanks, Obama.
I appreciate that. So here we have Obama. There's a picture. I wanted somebody dumber than me as my vice president. And they go to Joe. And the next picture is of Joe. And remember, we all love JoJo. No, don't. So Joe wants somebody dumber than him as vice president. And you know who he picks? Well, hello, everybody. And then there's a picture of her, Kamala, saying, I want someone who's dumber than me than vice president. And is there anybody dumber than Tim Walz? I mean, he's starting to make me feel good about my SAT scores.
Climate Hall town meeting that you had, in which you basically said, quote, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking, unquote. The ad claims that if you're elected president, you will ban fracking and you will cost Pennsylvania over 300,000 jobs. Have you changed your view on fracking? And if so, why?
So let me start by saying that ad, as you described it, is absolutely a mischaracterization that I think is intended to make people afraid of my presidency. Let me be absolutely clear, as I've been when I said it back in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I did not as vice president. In fact, I cast the tie-breaking vote to open up more fracking leases. And my perspective on this is grounded in a number of things, including...
And there we have it. Now you're going to go, who is that with? That's a friend of mine. And Sweet William, see if we can call John Delano from KDK TV, one of the great local political reporters in the country. And if you watch the CBS coverage of the debate, there was John Delano, one of those local iconic institutions. And unfortunately in television, we don't have those here anymore. We don't have Dee Sarton. We don't have Carolyn Holly. We don't have Bert. We don't have Mark Johnson. We just have a bunch of people that, you know, they wanted to be famous. John Delano of KDK TV, that guy lives for politics. So he's putting Kamala on the spot. CBS News interviewed him. And John and I go way back. He covered my story when I called out the owners of the Pittsburgh Steelers when they didn't play the national anthem during an ESPN game, Monday Night Football. And it's funny, people listening outside of Idaho are going to go, well, who cares about the Pittsburgh Steelers? There's a guy that drives around town that has his truck decorated like the terrible towel. It's black and gold. And the Steelers are very much the equivalent of the Cowboys. They're a national brand. And by the way, in Pittsburgh, they call them Stillers. So one of the reasons why I got booted and came here is I called out the owners of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I said, I don't really care. It was the Monday night game. It was about almost 20 years ago. Well, 16, 17 years ago, where the field was so bad when they punted the football, it just dropped. Like there was no bounce because the field was so bad. So because the weather conditions were so bad, they didn't play the national anthem. Well, as someone who loves America, I called them out on it. And again, I don't really know what the equivalent here would be like calling the blue turf green or something of that nature. So I remember John Delano put me on KDK TV. And of course, one of the dumbest visually things, I love classic football jerseys. One of my heroes growing up was Earl Campbell, the Tyler Rose, Houston Oilers. And look, I grew up loving the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'm sitting there ripping the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh, ripping their owner, wearing a Houston Oilers jersey. And the optics weren't very good. I had great intentions, but the point had to be proven. And then that led to numerous editorials calling for Mr. Rooney to buy the radio station and to get rid of me. I don't know if Mr. Rooney ever did, but the Rooney's a great family. But here you have John Delano saying this, and Kamala Harris going, no, it's a mischaracterization. No, it isn't. She's for the Green New Deal. I mean, are we going to just sit there and blatantly let her lie? And she has to do these interviews. By the way, it's not in person. She's in another part of the state. Does anybody really trust her and her daddy, Joe, when we're talking about a coherent, smart energy policy? We'll talk about that coming up. Let's get you to traffic safely and on time on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning, Kevin. From the G&G Installation Studio, traffic eastbound on the freeway, slowing down at the typical spots as you head toward the county line. Meridian Road, where it merges on, that does slow down eastbound as well. Inbound on the connector in good shape right now. With a record $84 million annual dividend, the Idaho Lottery has returned a total of nearly $1.3 billion to Idaho's public schools and buildings since 1989. When you play, Idaho wins. That's your traffic now on KIDO.
And don't forget our friend Sean Hannity today at 1 on KIDO Talk Radio. And of course, Beacon Plumbing, Fox News Now. Joining us now, our great friend Theo Wold. Mr. Wold, how are you?
I'm doing well, Kevin. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Well, we always appreciate you from the Claremont Institute. And of course, fresh off your appearance a couple weeks ago at the I believe it was the Times Square of Idaho, the Crane Creek Country Club.
Yeah, that's a good moniker for it. Yeah, it was a good event as always, and a good opportunity to speak with a lot of familiar faces, but a lot of new faces who have come into Idaho or are new to Idaho politics. We're looking for information about this Proposition 1 that would totally reorient and transform Idaho's elections from a simple, transparent, first-past-the-post system, the guy or gal with the most votes wins, to this Frankenstein monster created in a laboratory at MIT called ranked choice voting.
Let's talk a little bit about what's at stake here. And are you surprised that people are still on the fence about this or need to be informed?
I am and I'm not, and here's why. This is one of the great insights of the Democrat Party's focus on reshaping and reconfiguring our election systems, not winning or losing elections, but changing the overall way we vote. They've been at this for about 45 years. And this includes everything from, the Motor Voter Registration Act in 1992, which obligates federally funded state agencies or federal agencies to automatically register a voter when they are a recipient of benefits or aid. So that's why a lot of non-citizens or illegal aliens were enrolled on voter rolls across the country. They went into a federal agency and got a benefit, and then their name was just automatically added to voter registration. So ideas like that, to no-fault absentee, to what's now popular on the West Coast, all mail ballot elections, so that they're just sending a ballot to any name that appears as a registered post office name. So, you could have 4 and 5 ballots sent to a residence, whether or not people still live there, whether or not they maintain good registration or eligibility to vote. So those are all ideas that Democrats have been at. And I think for most people who work at 9 to 5, have kids, have a mortgage, coach the Little League team, who have real life and are doing real things, they're not thinking through the particular dynamics of our election system. I think most people just take it for granted that elections are fair, transparent, open, and accountable here in the United States. And then when they get their ballot, they go in and they mark the X or fill in the circles. They're not thinking through that. Whoa, what does this mean? You're changing the way that we vote. We're now moving to this system where I have to use advanced game theory to figure out what candidate I like. So at that level, I understand it. At the other level, I think folks have really been deprived of the right information. And part of that is, your peers in the media, Kevin, I wouldn't call them they're not your colleagues, because they're certainly doing something very different than what you do every day. But these folks are purposely, in a lot of ways, hiding the information from Idaho voters, obscuring the real issues, and painting a picture that is no way reflective of reality. So when you're looking at the major media outlets in the state, they've done a really bad job of putting the information in front of voters so they can make an informed choice.
Well, and again, they're always giving one side and not the other. So we've got to get your thoughts on the state of the race. We'll obviously get your thoughts on the debate and your experience in that arena. Where are we at now as far as the race goes, sir?
Yeah, I think there's just a handful of states now that we're really looking at. And someone might say, oh, well, Theo, we were always just looking at a handful of states. There's about 7 states, 8 counties. But now I think we're really down to Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania are the 3 big ones. So if Trump takes Georgia and North Carolina, the pathway for Kamala Harris to win the presidency narrows to almost an infinitesimal degree. If he wins Pennsylvania, it's over. It's over. So for folks who are going to be watching the returns come in on election night, or they want to be looking at polling and different events on the ground here in the last 30 days or so, those are the big 3 states. The second tier would be what may or may not occur in Wisconsin and Michigan. I think Michigan is a harder reach for Donald Trump, even though there's that fissure now in this chasm in the Democrat coalition over Kamala Harris and Tim Walz's past support for Hamas and Hezbollah, and then that sort of siphoning away the support of Jewish voters. But then at the same time, there are a lot of Muslim voters in Michigan that are unhappy with not having a full-throated opposition to Israelis' ongoing measures to protect their sovereignty. So even with all that said, I just don't think Michigan is winnable this cycle for President Trump. And instead, I think that second tier also includes Nevada, which I think is very winnable for the president, and I think is trending his way. So that's the first tier. And the second tier, now, of course, if President Trump wins Georgia and North Carolina and Pennsylvania, he's got the math. He doesn't need Nevada. But once he takes Nevada, you're looking at a pretty massive victory, probably on the scale of something we saw when George H.W. Bush was elected to the presidency in 1988. That would be the scale of the win. The one thing I'll say, Kevin, that your listeners really need to keep in mind is this is still a jump ball. It always was and is a close election. So, for example, most of the polling that shows Trump leading in these key states is within the margin of error. So if it swings the other way, if Kamala Harris is picking up a 3-point win in Georgia and North Carolina, she could be looking at a victory, a massive victory of her own, similar to what Barack Obama had in 2008. So, people who are interested in volunteering and helping out, either campaign, obviously, it's still a winnable election. It's on the razor's edge, and I think voters, a lot of voters will always complain, well, my vote doesn't matter, or it's a predetermined outcome. Here's yet another election where that is not true. The outcome is definitely still in dispute. Our great friend Theo Wohl joining us, Kevin Miller in the Morning KIDO Talk Radio. It's hard to believe that
that Georgia flipped and is so such an issue. And again, the president and Governor Kemp have their issues, but in the end, we should all be uniting. And I can't see that Georgia would be allowed to slip away, considering how good a candidate and Governor Brian Kemp has been.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I hope that the narrative that we are dissecting, Kevin, in 40 days, you and I, when we look back on the returns, is, wow, how did Trump and Kemp bury the hatchet and mobilize that very effective state Republican Party in Georgia? Alternatively, I think the story will be told exactly as you framed it, which is the disagreements that President Trump and Governor Kemp have had over the years led to some disunity in the party, and a result similar to those U.S. Senate special elections back in 2020, where the Democrats picked up 2 seats in the U.S. Senate with radically leftist candidates that are a total mismatch for the sort of the median voter in Georgia, to say nothing of it being a Republican state. So, but the one thing you've got to keep in mind, I think a lot of folks who follow politics in the Treasure Valley are aware of this, which is that there is an element in Georgia as Atlanta continues to grow, and it has a lot of northeastern transplants moving in there, that Atlanta really has mutated the dynamics of Georgia. So the map will be all red except for Fulton County, the city of Columbus, where University of Georgia is located, and a couple of coastal communities like Savannah. Otherwise, it's a red state. That's a dynamic that a lot of states are looking at as urban centers become less and less reflective of the state as a whole. And it's obviously a dynamic we should all be thinking through here in Idaho as Boise continues to grow and become less and less reflective of places around the state, like in Kootenai County or out east, or a place like Power County. They might as well be from different sides of the moon, because they just have different views of the world, different priorities, different types of jobs. And that's going to be an issue in a place like Georgia, and increasingly an issue in a place like Idaho.
I'm with you. Our great friend Theo Wold joining us from the Claremont Institute, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And again, this is like Kevin Miller, old home day, these 3 states, having lived in Georgia and North Carolina. Now, again, Mr. Wold, you that have dedicated yourself to public service, you remember Senator Jesse Helms. It's hard to believe that North Carolina could be considered a toss-up. And I get Charlotte with the Democrats there in Raleigh, where I used to live. But again, it's tough to believe that North Carolina is a toss-up. Yes, they have Roy Cooper, but he's an old blue dog Democrat governor. So how do you see North Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting dynamic. I'm actually a big fan of Jesse Helms. That's if I had a political icon, I think he's very emblematic of the kind of Republican I wish we still had in the U.S. Senate. And you're right. I think there's a couple of changes that have occurred in North Carolina. The growth of the so-called research triangle in Raleigh-Durham and that area with Duke University, North Carolina State, UNC Chapel Hill, that's just exploded and has brought all kinds of big tech and northeastern investment money into the state, and has really changed the dynamics from being a tobacco, rural, agricultural state to now software engineering. And, it's one of the highest concentration of H-1B visa holders in the country. So it's a different type of North Carolina. North Carolina's also had a lot of northeastern transplants move in, similar to South Carolina, similar to Florida. That's also changed the dynamic. But I think what's really going on here is something similar to 2008, where the down-ticket races, and this is why candidate quality really matters, whether people agree with what happened to Mark Robinson, they think it was based on truth, and he actually did some of these sort of disgusting things, or whether it's made up, it's definitely had an effect. And Mark Robinson, the candidate for governor, a Republican candidate for governor in North Carolina, is now running about 17, 18 points behind the Democrat Attorney General of North Carolina, who's running for governor. So that race is really drawing down the numbers. And I think there's been a lot of money invested by outside Democrat groups to mobilize young black voters, the northeastern transplants, and sort of these PhD Silicon Valley types who live in the research triangle to get them out and to vote. So that's the dynamic there. And yet, look, Donald Trump remains really popular even in coastal communities like Wilmington,
He's got a strong base there, and I really hope that despite the amount of money that Democrats have poured into North Carolina over the last 3 years, I think it's going to hold. And there were recent projections, Kevin, that really showed that on registration numbers, on requests for absentee ballots, and on moving in and moving out numbers, that Republicans are ahead of the mark that they set in 2020 and 2016 when Trump carried the state. So the projections are actually better for Trump than they were in those two election cycles. So I think there's a hopeful sign. And we'll see how the dynamics of Hurricane Helene play out in the state. I will say a lot of folks have highlighted the difference between a good, strong Republican governor like Ron DeSantis and how he responded to multiple catastrophic natural disasters in his state, and the missing in action element of Roy Cooper, who has been 10 days without delivering supplies, has not been heard from, and his state-run emergency authority has been totally absent from the scene. So, if that story gets out and the devastation and destruction in Asheville and in western North Carolina is seen by lots of voters, then that could be a dynamic. Conversely, I will say these kinds of disasters make it harder for ordinary Americans to get to the polls. When you've lost your house, your livelihood, and members of, maybe in some instances, tragically, of your family, going and showing up and voting in an election is sometimes the last of your priorities. Yeah. We saw that with the fires in Eastern Oregon just a few years ago. So that dynamic, we'll see how that plays out and affects the trajectory of North Carolina in this election cycle. Our great friend Theo Wold joining us. And finally, on the Kevin Miller reunion tour, Pennsylvania, again, you have, they call it, you have liberal Pittsburgh, liberal Philadelphia, and Alabama in the middle. How, and we'll only spend a few minutes because I'd love to get the last 5 minutes on the debate and J.D. Vance, Mr. Wold. However, are they really, how big of a regret are they having not picking Josh Shapiro right now? Oh, I think it's enormous. I think it's enormous. I mean, I've seen Governor Shapiro speak essentially extemporaneous, off the cuff, a couple of times. He's a pretty charismatic public speaker. He's articulate. And this term is bandied about too much, but he is a policy wonk. He really likes to get into the details of things. And I think at this point, with how close Pennsylvania is, and despite their efforts to hype Kamala Harris, how asleep a lot of the core constituencies in Philly and Pittsburgh remain, I think they really, really are regretting not choosing him.
Yeah, and could you imagine a debate between Vance and Shapiro? So let's move on to this. Your reaction?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it was a masterclass for JD. He showed what so many supporters of his, friends of his, and I've known JD for a long time, what we've known about JD, which is he is articulate, he's relatable, he's actually a very likable guy. It really is funny now, right, to think that they spent months sort of lampooning JD as weird, when most Americans, even some Democrats in focus groups, when they watched the debate, they walked away saying, well, JD was articulate, he was relatable, he seemed quite normal. The weird guy on the debate was the dude with the caught in the headlights eyes and the stammering and the explanations that really didn't pass muster on multiple lies. And that was, Tim Walz. He was the one who really seemed kind of nervous and a little off, if you will. And I thought that was an interesting dynamic. I also think, look, on Tim Walz in particular, I mean, that moment where he described himself as a knucklehead, excusing away yet another kind of nasty lie that he has told was sort of shocking. I mean, Kevin, you and I would agree, like, if you visited 9/11, New York City, after 9/11, you wouldn't get your dates wrong and think you were there when 9/11 happened if you weren't actually in New York. Or, just even recently, a lot of folks in Idaho travel to Hawaii, frequently. If you visited Maui at the week of the fires, you wouldn't misremember the days and say, oh, I was there when it happened if you weren't. That's kind of a big deal. And for the governor, essentially, to be caught once again. So he lied about his military service and his military record. He lied about the bills that he has signed or not signed as governor of Minnesota, or the votes he took when he was a member of Congress. And now he's caught lying even about his foreign travel, which he's projected. Some people will say, oh, it's just a trip. But no, he's used these trips to China to say, well, I know more about foreign policy than J.D. Vance does. And now we catch him lying, and his excuse is, well, I'm just a knucklehead. I thought that was, actually fairly shocking, and a real tell about the media's inability to really, hold people accountable on the Democrat side. And the other thing I think that's really interesting for Idaho voters was that moment when they asked about federal lands and Governor Walz, the governor of a state, said, I don't really know anything about federal lands. And J.D. Vance said, I don't know as much as my Western Senate colleagues, but I know a lot, and I know the federal government owns too much of Western states, and that's a key portion of the growing housing crisis in those states, especially in the West. I thought that was a very telling moment, especially for, voters in the Intermountain West, like where we are in Idaho, that you've got a guy who essentially says, I'm an Eastern governor, Midwestern governor, and I don't know much about your core issue. Maybe I'll learn on the job. Maybe I won't. And another guy who says, no, I've thought about this. I've talked to my Senate colleagues who are from your region, and I've got some ideas. So, Trump-Vance has a plan for fighting the housing crisis. Harris-Walz wants to increase the housing crisis with more illegal aliens and really your issues that affect you as a citizen in Idaho. They don't know anything about it, and they don't plan to learn anything about it.
Okay, what's it like to have someone in your age group being so elevated on the national stage, sir? And you're no slouch in that department either, but what's that vibe like for you and for people in your generation?
Yeah, two things. I was really proud, because I think millennials get a bad rap all the time, and I won't argue with Gen Xers, Kevin, like you, or boomers who have had
or really Gen Zers like Bo. Look, I've accepted you people. You guys are. I'm all with the millennials now. I was with you all the time.
No. Right. There you go. But I won't argue with people who have had bad experiences with millennials. Who millennials don't show up to work on time or flake out or these things. But I will say that moment was great to see someone of my generation succeed and really prove that millennials are ready to lead. There are a lot of old hands steering the ship of state here throughout the country. Folks who have been in office for 20, 30 years, sometimes longer than I've been alive. Folks have held these offices down. And their records are not exactly great. They're a mixed bag. And so to see someone like J.D. come on the scene, I think, and do as well as he did. It's not just because he's young. It's not just because, he's young and he says cool things. No, he was articulate. He showed mastery of policy. And he also really showed a different element of Republican messaging, a willingness to accept mistakes of the past and to reach new voters. I'll just tell a quick anecdote. I was talking to a friend of mine. He and his wife just went through a very difficult pregnancy. It ended in an ectopic procedure. The fetus, the unborn child was not viable, and they had to sort of square that with their own personal convictions as Christians. It was really difficult for them. And, my friend was sort of on the fence about J.D. Vance. He texted me during the debate, and he said, look, I know you probably don't agree with everything he said on his answer on live, Theo, that it probably wasn't as strong as you'd like, but I'll say for a voter like me and my wife and the situation we're going through, it was nice to hear a Republican reach out to us and say, I understand these are difficult decisions and these are difficult issues that you're confronting, and we as Republicans are willing to hear those and to include you in our discussions when we formulate policy. So as a millennial, I was very proud to see that, and I think, the other part of this is just as someone who's known J.D. Vance and known what he's capable of, I was glad that other Americans, other voters got to see that on clear display as well.
Okay, we want to be respectful of your time, so 20 seconds. We'll talk about this next week. Is Tester in trouble? And I don't know if you caught that debate the other night between he and she.
I did. He is, and that is such great news for anyone who wants to see real reform in the U.S. Senate and some common sense returned to Western representation. He's in real trouble. Tim Sheehy, maybe not to the level of J.D. Vance masterclass, but certainly really called Senator Tester out on a lot of things that he's tried to hide from Montana voters for some time now. And it was good to see someone hold Senator Tester to account for his own record. And I think Senator Tester is in real trouble.
Theo Wold, we love having you on. Thank you for taking time to inform us here in Idaho, sir.
Hey, Kevin, it's always a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for having me on again.
All right, take care now.
All right.
All right, there we have it, our great friend Theo Wold talking about ranked choice voting. And like I said, it's funny, I was on a conference call, and it's like thankfully, poor Bo, he wasn't even here. I go, dude, I don't even know how to spell Zoom. So I'm on this conference call, and people are saying, well, Kevin, you're an ideologue, you're watching Fox News. I go, no, I don't. Well, what did you watch? I said, I watched the Washington governor's debate the other night. But I will tell you that you go on YouTube and you watch the Montana Senate debate, and you have John Tester, who is beloved by the people of Montana, because he's a farmer, and you know he is one of those outliers that in a predominantly red state continues to win. And Senator Tester, who has been a friend of ours, Dave Tester, his nephew, friend of ours, is in real trouble. And the Republicans have targeted him. Donald Trump, at the height of his powers, couldn't get him. And now you have Tim Sheehy, who's been on with Clay and Buck, who's been on with Sean. The guy is a real-life hero, Navy SEAL, pilot. His wife was in the military. I think he was in the Navy. She was a Marine. And now he's a multimillionaire. You get really, you feel like an underachiever around folks like Mr. Sheehy. So they're going back and forth, and here's a line. I think we played it the other day where Tim Sheehy on one hand is saying, while you're having your big stakes, and talking to the lobbyist, I was fighting for America, and then Senator Tester pulling the old boy, which I love. Well, Tim and his big money friends are trying to buy Montana. It was so relatable to what's going on here in Idaho and the brilliance of this state. And again, what I love about Theo Wold is how he broke down the disagreements between Governor Kemp and Donald Trump. And because there were disagreements, it allowed the libs to get in. And not everybody in the vast, dominant Republican Party get along. And I get that. And you know something? You can be good people. As a consultant said to me, Kevin, you remind me of my first marriage. Two good people that couldn't get along. You don't have to get along, but the last thing we want in our beloved state of Idaho, whether you're native or you just got here, is to have the libs. We don't want to turn Idaho into Boise. So please write that down. That's a great, great blog topic or article topic, whatever you want to call it. Idaho doesn't deserve to be Boise. Boise, they've mandated, they're going to put in, and I guess the folks at ACHD, they're useful idiots, and I love ACHD, I love Kent Goldthorpe, but the idea that they've ordered the red light cameras, and just like the Empire in Star Wars, dun, 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 the red light cameras shall roll into Boise. We'll talk more about that next in Boise style of government versus Idaho style of government. First, Subaru Jerry joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Subaru Jerry.
Good morning, Kevin. Hey, I just got in the car and heading to work, and you caught my attention with what you were viewing. You mentioned that you watched the Washington governor's debate.
I watched that one, and then I watched the Montana Senate debate. Since we don't have any debates here, I find myself outsourcing my debate watching.
Well, yeah, I get that, but, I don't get all those sources to be able to do that. And I assume we're talking about Washington State.
Yeah, Washington State, but here's the thing is you can always get those on YouTube. They, like the Montana Senate debate I watched on YouTube. They put those up.
Okay.
And that's, courtesy of Montana Public Television. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'd like your assessment of the Washington one.
The Washington debate, I think, again, you have a guy who has, been a congressman there against the current attorney general. And anytime you have a Republican, and hopefully they can replace Governor Inslee, I think it's a good deal. It was a lot of funding about education, or a lot of talk about education. If I recall correctly, not a lot of cultural issues, but I may be mistaken. It wasn't very exciting. It wasn't as exciting as look, if you want an hour of politics, and you're doing some honey-do lists around the House, Montana Public Television Senate debate, Tester and Sheehy, much superior to anything that I've had. The Washington debate was kind of dry. That's the only thing I can give you, Subaru Jerry.
Okay, so what was your opinion of Inslee's adversary?
No, Inslee is not running, so it's two newbies.
Oh, Inslee is not running.
No, and I think if it were Inslee, it would have been a lot more creative, a lot more compelling, a lot more entertaining. No, Inslee is not running, so that's what was probably the most boring part about it, is you're sitting there going, okay, here's this guy, okay. It was a former congressman against the current attorney general, yeah.
I get it, but, it's my assessment of Inslee is when I met Walsh on TV, I looked at my wife and I said, there's Inslee.
A knucklehead.
Yeah.
Wait, how stupid are the people of Minnesota to elect a knucklehead?
Well, how stupid is the people of Washington State to keep Inslee in there for all those years?
I agree.
People are leaving. You go to Costco and half the license plates are from Washington. And, oh, by the way, they're all out of date, and they don't buy Idaho ones.
I totally agree with you. I think there should be a $100 fine for anyone that is in this state with out-of-state plates. And I don't care about, I can't afford it. You could afford to live here, buddy. You could afford to change your plates. Quit insulting people.
I emailed you a picture my wife took the other day. She was following a car from California, and that plate expired in April of 23.
I saw that. What's well, dude, people from California, the bad ones, they make up the rules as they go. And I have to be careful because they always call into Mike Owens and yell at him about me because, it doesn't mean that I'm wrong. It means that, have some respect.
Well, we can chastise them all we want, but where's the enforcement?
I totally agree with you. Where is the enforcement? This is where Lee Joe would start insulting the police.
Well, tell Lee Joe we need to get some of these bumps smoothed out of the roads.
Well, yes. Now, are you familiar with State Street at all?
I rarely get down there, but I know where it is.
You're smart. So, the brilliant folks, and this is where I'm going to get in trouble with Kent Goldthorpe, but oh well. At ACHD, they're going to widen the roads, and they're going to do all these crazy things with the bikes, and it's going to be even worse. They're tearing down signs and everything, and you're going, really, guys? Is this where we're at? Is this the best we can do? No, we should say that for everything. Is this the best we can do?
Well, I don't know how they assign their priorities, but they're definitely screwed up.
Well, you're right.
Hey, I'd like to see some running red light enforcement. There goes a Napa cop on a motorcycle right in front of me on 7th and 12th. If he'd sit over here in the Albertson parking lot, he could hand out about 10 red light running tickets in the next hour.
Well, note to our friends at the Napa Police Department, if you need to make some money, like a lot of us, we have to make the blog quotas. So if you need to make the quota, that's the hot spot for running red lights. In Boise, they're going to have red light cameras. They're going to get rid of the cops to do that.
Well, they have those in Washington, too. And I'm telling you, I have a friend who was driving through Fife, Washington. I don't know if you know where that is, but it's just between Tacoma on the way to Seattle on the old Highway 99. And there's a major intersection down there by where the freeway interchange is, and there's crosswalks. And I have a friend who stopped for the stoplight, and his bumper was several inches into that white line, and they mailed him a ticket for $275.
Oh, yeah, the people of Boise have no idea what they're in for with the red light cameras coming. I had those in Raleigh. We've had those in Oregon. It is not good, yeah. But, there is no dissension in Boise.
No. Okay, well, that's all I have this morning.
Well, we talked you out, did we?
That was a long one. I'm beat.
And then you got to go to work. Subaru Jerry, thank you.
Okay, bye, Kevin.
Bye-bye, the great Subaru Jerry. Don't forget our friends at Beacon Plumbing. You know what they say at Beacon Plumbing? What's that, Bo? Bo, Bo knows. Oh, I bet Bo has never heard that one before. Stop freaking, call Beacon. BeaconPlumbing.net. Water heater goes out, clogged drain, clogged toilet. Oh, no. Call our friends at Beacon Plumbing. Stop freaking, call Beacon. Please tell them Kevin Miller sent you. Virginia debate candidate Hung Kao, who, by the way, I believe is a great friend of Jeff Katz, our great friend. We need to get Jeff on. Talking about the military. Here we have it. I mean, this is what needs to happen, where he's talking about we need some people that are ready to roll in the military, right?
When you're using a drag queen to recruit for the Navy, that's not the people we want. Look, what we need is alpha males and alpha females who are going to rip out their own guts, eat them, and ask for seconds. Those are young men and women that are going to win wars.
Please.
Well, yeah, you don't really want somebody dressed up like Peter Sellers, and again, you can't relate to this, so sorry, in the Pink Panther. Hello, boys! Harry in Caldwell with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Harry, thank you for the call and your patience. Hello, Harry.
Hello?
Overture, curtain lights. Hello, Harry.
No, this is Harv.
Harv. You know, it's what happens, Harv, when I don't have my glasses on. My bad. Sorry, Harv.
No problem. Long-time listener, and this is my second time calling in. But I'm a motorcycle rider, and you're talking about red light runners. And Kevin, I about had it with those people. I sat, when the light turns green for me to go, I still sit there another 15, 20 seconds until I make sure that cross traffic is stopping. And 9 times out of 10, there's 2 or 3 that will blow a red light. And, as far as I'm concerned, for a motorcycle rider, that's premeditated murder.
Well, you have to be very courageous or very crazy to be a motorcycle rider in this place.
Yeah, I know, I hear you, but you love it, and sometimes it's definitely worth the risk.
Well, going back, Harv, to the red light cameras, do you believe that Boise's right to do that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They can make a bundle of money. In fact, I've talked to a few of the officers here in Caldwell, and, I drive all day for a living, and I talked to a few of the officers here in Caldwell and kind of complained about the red light runners, and all I get is we're working on it. And, I haven't seen any change, but I'm all for the cameras. They had them where I came from, and they work. And these police departments could make a lot more money if they do that.
Well, hopefully it would stop the idiots that are running the red lights.
Yeah, exactly. I know my ex-wife got a ticket sent to her in the mail for running a red light. Camera nailed her, and it was not cheap either.
No, they're not. You like living in Caldwell? Is Caldwell good, or your thoughts lately on Caldwell? I know they had to cancel like the dance or something at the school.
Yeah, it's well, I don't know. I just
Harv, I don't think people are going to know who you are, but I mean, your answer right there says it all. I mean, look, we don't want to pick on any Treasure Valley city. We want to be welcome everywhere, but the boneheaded move with the parking meters, the this, the that, what the heck's going on?
That was a waste of money. They put him in, and then a month or two later they're taking them out because people were not going downtown, and the businesses were really suffering from it. And
it's just very confusing because I went down there and I'm okay. You got to swipe this and wipe that, and are you kidding me?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's frustrating, but just doing life. That's all we can do, at this point, and make our voices heard and for the things we oppose, and keep moving forward and hope somebody listens and makes some changes,
Yes, that's the idea. Make some changes, improve our lives.
Yeah, exactly. But Anyway, I just wanted to call in, Kevin. I'm president of your fan club, by the way.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Harv.
I listen to you every morning. All right. Have a great day, and thanks for taking my call.
Well, Harv, don't tell anybody, but we got to go to the creek sometime. I love that place.
Oh, yeah, I know it. In fact, I was looking possibly to do the lunch with Kevin thing, or breakfast, I think it was. I'm not sure what.
It's lunch with Kevin. If you ever get in Meridian, we could do that at Harvey's. I owe like 3 or 4 people lunches, but I'm definitely into that if you want to be a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoy sitting down talking to you sometime and having lunch.
All right. Well, send me an email, would you, and say it's from Harv.
You got it.
Thank you, Harv. You take care, brother, all right?
All right. Thank you. Have a great day, Kevin.
You as well, the great Harv from Caldwell. Phone number's here, 580-KIDO, 580-5436. Again, we're going to go back to the red light cameras. We do want to talk a little bit about that. Our friend John Delano, who would be the best journalist to interview Kamala here? I don't know. He had a chance to speak with her. Did she ever answer a question from KDK Television on KIDO Talk Radio?
President Trump says that you've had 4 years as vice president to do all the things you've promised in the campaign, but haven't done it. Is he right, or did President Biden not give you or limit it in some way your role as vice president?
So let's start with this. I think that the former president is really becoming quite desperate, and is really been offering a lot of misstatements and misinformation. And perhaps it's because he wants to distract from the fact that he has offered no plan for the American people. I have talked about this before. I invite you to go to his rallies, and what you'll hear about full time is him talking about himself and his personal grievances, but what you won't hear him talking about is you and the needs that you have as a working person, as a family person. My plan is about building an opportunity economy where I'm going to give first-time home buyers a $25,000 down payment assistance so they can get their foot in their door to be able to be a homeowner. My plan is about $6,000 tax deduction for middle-class families for the first year of their child's life to help them buy a crib or a car seat. My plan is about getting a $50,000 tax deduction.
Giveaway, giveaway, giveaway. Are you kidding me? Giveaway? Somebody's going to pay. Somebody's going to pay. Makes you wonder. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Quick break, then more of you with me next. Stay tuned. 543-6-580-KIDO. It's called the App Yap Club. Sweet William, can you pull that up? What? You're busy? What are you busy doing? Look, we're running a real-life organization here. And it's very unfair to the listening audience because they only hear me. A lot of people say, they go, do you really exist? And that's the way you like it. Well, thank you very much for that. Let's go to the App Yap Club. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. As soon as the computer loads, we'll do that. Also, we are talking about red light cameras. The city of Boise has decided in their infinite wisdom to put them in. And I can remember 5 years ago saying it's a great idea. They have contracted with ACHD to put them in because it's all about safety. Yes. Are there a lot of boneheads that do a lot of boneheaded things and drive inappropriately? Yes. But I guess that's why we have a republic and not a democracy, because they've just arbitrarily done this. And then you had Mayor McLean going, yes, it's good. You get your talking points from somebody in Washington. Let's see. Here we go. I saw a car go from my far right lane to the left-hand lane, cutting off a Caldwell cop in the center of the lane yesterday. The cop did absolutely nothing about it. Maybe they were off duty. Maybe they had bigger things to take care of. It was quite befuddling. Denver in Nampa. Eric and Payette, hey, Kevin, red light cameras in Boise will bleed out the surrounding areas just like California, and that is the beginning of the downward slide to the bottom of the tank. Red light cameras are sneaky liberals and their way of getting into those cities and towns they don't fully agree with the liberal agenda, because once the red light cameras go in, the money rolls into the blue pocket. The cost of tickets goes up. The bike lanes suddenly start expanding into traffic lanes, which is going to happen on Old State Street. Vehicle registration goes up, and so on and so on. Smog certificates will be required, and the number of signal lights increase. And don't forget to ask ACHD when they're going to extend the red light timeframes, so more traffic lights and traffic tickets get created. Boise and the mayor are 100% cancer for Idaho. Ouch. You are witnessing the conversion of the free Idaho with at one time is the least regulated state, with the nation's governors saying let it happen, with our governor saying let it happen. Wow. I don't know if the governor could send troops in to Boise. Could Governor Little do that? We're like, it would be and where would you get the troops from? I'm currently listening to you talk about the governor's race in Washington. My brother and wife live up there, and they've informed me that Jay Inslee is moving to North Idaho. May want to send an alert to the listeners up there that to give that guy a warm welcome. Thank you, Jeff. Jay Inslee in North Idaho. Boy, how insulting would that be? How insulting would that be to the state of Washington? Kevin, when I lived in Springfield, Missouri, they tried to do the red light cameras where you would automatically be sent the ticket if you got caught. The state Supreme Court struck it down as unconstitutional as it denied due process. I think the Idaho Supreme Court would feel similarly. Let's go to Cindy in Eagle with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Cindy, thank you for the call.
Oh, good morning, Kevin. I have a ticket story. It's about 11 years ago. We were in California. We had relatives there. And, of course, when you're trying to go from one freeway to another, and then there's the toll roads and everything, and we pulled onto a freeway on-ramp, and somehow as we went by, I said, "What, were we supposed to pay?" You know, it was a toll road thing. I don't know. There was nothing, no instructions, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we didn't pay. We just kept going. And so after we got home, it was about 6 weeks later, in the mail comes a ticket for $250, I think it was, saying that we had gone through a toll road illegally. And so I thought, wow. So I called them, and I told her, I said, we didn't realize we're from Idaho. I played we're so, innocent. We're from Idaho. And so the lady finally, she says, okay, well, how about $40? And okay, that's the deal. So I mailed him the $40, and that was the end of the story. But one thing that doesn't work, we're always talking about all the license plates that are from other states. A lot of those people are visiting. And if they get a ticket for doing something wrong, you can mail it to them. There's no guarantee that they're going to pay it. And that's one drawback from I don't like the idea of the red light tickets either. But, it would be easier for the police. They don't have to stop and give you a ticket. It just comes in the mail. So I'm kind of torn on that. But it would not apply. There's no guarantee that out-of-staters are going to pay those fees. I did pay our $40, by the way.
Wow. So what do you think about it here?
I hate to see it come here. It is like big city, but there are so many changes happening to Boise. If it would help us get revenue a little easier and make it easier on the police, make it a little safer, maybe we should go ahead and do that. I do hate the idea, and I see it fail all the time, of parking meters. I went downtown the other day and spent 10 minutes trying to figure out a parking meter, and then I looked at the other side of it and said, first 30 minutes free. Well, I had wasted 10 minutes of my 30 minutes.
Who would have ever thought that we would make coins obsolete?
I know. Well, it took me a long time to figure out how to use it.
Yeah.
And, I really don't like parking meters, so that I'm definitely against. But the auto ticket thing, maybe it's time.
Wow. Of course, if it works in Boise, it's going to. Can you imagine Eagle and Fairview with the red light cameras, number one. Number two, those lights are the longest, and what's going to happen is you're going to have people start slamming on the brakes. So for the first 6 months to a year, it's going to be nothing but, crashes.
Well, and I do understand, people, it takes them a while to get going after the red light turns green. And you do. When you've waited an enormous amount of time to make your left-hand turn, and then it gets to be yellow, and you think, I got to sit and wait again. The temptation is to just floor it and go. And the people who have been waiting, they can't possibly go that fast, so they're not going to hit you. And I think that's the thinking. So, yeah, you're going to see slamming of brakes instead to avoid a ticket. I don't like that. I
don't either. It's weird. Cindy, I got 30 seconds. What's it like living in Eagle? Is it the same as it used to be? I mean, I hear traffic in Eagle's pretty bad.
It's horrible, and it's blocked off all the time. It's blocked off again, and I don't even go down there anymore. I make a left. I live in Eagle. Make a left, go around, go down to State Street or 44, and then I turn at the signal on Eagle and State, because trying to get through downtown Eagle is just impossible. I don't know what the little businesses are doing. I don't know if they're managing, and I hope they are.
We appreciate you. You take care of yourself.
Oh, you too. Thanks, Kevin. Bye-bye.
From Fox News Radio, and Mr. Savage, how are you?
I am not too bad, thank you. I'm pretty well. How are you doing?
Well, what is it, 3 o'clock in your place now? I know it's usually you've got that strange time zone.
It is 3 o'clock. In fact, I'm just a few hours away from heading to the airport for a weekend in Scotland. So my suitcase is sitting next to me, but there's plenty of work to be done before then.
That has got to be such a cushy gig, because you're talking to us when we're at our weakest, and you're rolling. So talking to everybody in the morning is no big deal for you guys, huh?
Well, you say that, but this is the mid-afternoon slump when you just need a little bit of extra cup of coffee just to get you through. You know what I mean?
Sure, indeed. So let's talk about the latest in Israel. They're banning the United Nations chief, saying he's anti-Israel and biased against the country, so he gets the boot?
Yeah, what a diplomatic mess this is. As you know, Iran launched 180 ballistic missiles at Israel a couple of days ago. The initial response from the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres was a brief statement calling it the latest attacks in the Middle East and broadly condemning the conflict as escalation after escalation, and then going on to criticize Israel for its actions in Gaza and the West Bank. Now, Israel did not like that statement. Its foreign minister said anyone who cannot unequivocally condemn Iran's heinous attacks on Israel does not deserve to step foot on Israeli soil. Accordingly, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres was declared persona non grata in Israel. Now, I should say he rode back the next day. He said he strongly condemns the massive missile attack, but the damage was done.
Wow. I don't think this has ever happened before, has it?
I cannot remember it happening, and the spokesman for the United Nations was asked if he can remember it happening. He says in his 24 years of the organization, he can't either. So it is very unusual. It's not likely to affect the work of the United Nations. In fact, the United Nations says they will continue their contacts with Israel. They'll continue to work with Israel, inverted commas, because they need to. The UN says that it does incredibly important work in Gaza, incredibly important work in the region, and can play an important role for security and stability. But it's going to have to do that with even less cooperation with the Israelis.
Well, now, where do we go from here? We had the Iranian attack. The Israelis are pondering what they're going to do next. Have they contacted you?
No, they've not come and asked for my opinion, but they have been talking to the U.S. government, and the U.S. government's been talking back to them. Yesterday, President Biden was asked under the wing of Air Force One if he would support an Israeli strike on Iranian nuclear sites. President Biden gave that a flat no. He said any action should be proportionate. So given he's saying that publicly, you can imagine that behind the scenes, his administration is going to be making it clear to the Israelis that taking on Iranian nuclear sites will be off limits. The next question, are the Israelis listening to that? Because they haven't always done what the United States has told them to do in the last 12 months. All right. Did you catch Osprey versus Ricochet last night? No, because here it's not shown until Friday night. So you won't be disappointed. Tomorrow night when I'm off in Scotland, I will be tuning in. Yeah, you won't be disappointed. I can't imagine I would be. I don't think I've ever been disappointed by Will Ospreay or Ricochet for that matter. And you did see you saw the Ospreay documentary, right? Yeah, well, I have actually, yes. Okay, and you recommended it. That's why I bought it for $6, so I'm going to watch it. Okay, good. Yeah, he, like I say, he doesn't disappoint. You could say the same about you, Jonathan Savage. Have a safe trip this weekend. I will. Thank you. Thank you, our great friend Jonathan Savage. Don't forget, Clay and Buck, they're going to give away a pair of tickets to Boise State versus Utah State. That's going to be exciting. Your chance. Just listen for the cue to call during the Clay and Buck show right here on KIDO Talk Radio. Our great friend Peter Thiele joining us, branding expert, news talk guru, program director, and talent. Joining us from Iowa, I believe. Mr. Thiele, thank you for joining us, sir. Always a pleasure.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for having me on. I'm still sort of thinking about Douglas Emhoff. Probably the worst husband ever. MSNBC says he was redefining masculinity. And this is, by the way, for those who are not familiar, this is the hubby of potential future President Kamala Harris. So, please go ahead, Peter. He sleeps with the babysitter. Okay? You know, we've all fallen short. No one's perfect, right? He impregnates her. That's not good. Wives, as a general thing, don't like that. Any of those things wives don't like. Then comes out that he was dating some woman who was at a party talking to a man, and he hauled off and punched her around a little bit. So this is going to be the first gentleman, apparently. And I want to know, do you think he's ever punched Kamala Harris?
You know, I know if he were talking to you, you would have enough guts to ask him that question.
Yeah, I would not pause in asking such a question. Once you smack her around a little bit and apologize, is the marital relations over the top? I have no idea.
Well, some people like that.
I know. It's some people like to be hit. And I'm just going to say this, just for me, Kevin. If love involves any type of angry assault, it's probably not that good.
Well, the timing of this report could not be worse since it's Domestic Violence Prevention Month.
Well, good. And maybe Dougie has to do an interview talking about why he learned that punching women's bad.
And let me give you the old Sean Hannity. Could you imagine if this were Donald Trump or J.D. Vance? It'd be everywhere.
Yeah, of course it would be. And ironically, it's as far as I know, neither of those guys have punched someone around. And then you have Tim Walz, who that debate performance was beyond bizarre. Beyond bizarre on Tuesday night. And I'm really concerned. I'm just going, okay, the Democrats have, there's probably, 50 people who are qualified to be a vice presidential nominee. You have people in Congress, Senate, governors, yada, yada, yada. And Kamala Harris finds a guy who, by all accounts now, should be about 90th on that list. Lied about his bio. Has made up stories. Looks totally nuts. Runs out like he's Chris Farley. It's his wife. There was one thing, but there have been a lot of footage of when Walz and his wife are at these events, and they're on something. They've got to be. Now, I'm not the Captain Sobriety, and I'm not necessarily an expert on chemical dependency, but these two people look like they are on something. Am I wrong here, Kevin?
No, I agree with you.
And I'm just going, and Kamala Harris, her laughing jibes, just come across like somebody who's had a couple of wines at a dinner party. I've been at dinner parties with wine women before. That's what they are like. It's just bizarre.
It is. Our great
we
friend.
live in a very, very...
We do. Our great friend Peter Thiele, sorry for stepping on you. Where should we begin? I love where you just run with things. Do you want to go back to the debate? And again, you as someone who has worked in Minnesota media, politics at the highest levels, what do you make of Walz?
I have actually, several of the people who are political reporters in the Twin Cities were there when I worked in the Twin Cities 25 years ago. These are people I'm friends with on Facebook. I'm connected to them on Twitter. And I have wanted to say to them, and I don't think I'll do it on social media, I think I have to actually be standing in front of them and say, didn't you guys vet this guy at all? What the hell? What's going on with media? Why aren't you looking at somebody who wants to be governor and finding out, okay, they've got this bio. You could spend an hour on it and poke holes in it. It's the media's job is to confirm that that people are saying that people who are running are who they say they are. And it's obvious Tim Walz is not. He was not for governor. He was not for Congress. He's obviously not for vice president of the United States. His performance was bizarre. His facial expressions were beyond crazy. He called himself a knucklehead. He basically admitted to lying on his bio. And we have a lot of mainstream media people, because they hate Orange Man so much that they will go out and totally give this idiot a pass.
And we saw that on display. How would you relate or evaluate Senator Vance's performance?
I thought he was very, very good. The only thing that I didn't think he did well with was when the January 6th question was brought up. I don't think he had a prepared answer. I don't think that it made a lot of sense. And there is a good answer, for the thing. Number one, it was not an insurrection. It was mainly a bunch of 60-year-olds, and I can relate. I'm around that age, who has been to the Golden Corral a few times. I've been to Golden Corral a few times. It's amazing. Does Boise still have a Sizzler, by the way?
We lost our Sizzler about 6 months ago.
I've been to a Sizzler. I'm an amply proportioned feller. Most of these people who went through the nation's capital on January 6th were portly sightseers, and really all you could really hit them up with, instead of insurrection, which was so stupid, trespassing, and at the most. And so the answer would be for J.D. Vance was saying, well, of course there wasn't an insurrection. There was an insurrection. Donald Trump would have led and would have gone out of his way to make sure that never happened. Well, of course, Trump didn't stand in the way of it. And, of course, Trump left office. I mean, my goodness. And this is the same party complaining about this, the media complaining about January 6th, are those who are looking at the other way internationally when you have a dictator like Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela actually lose an election and he's still in charge and he ain't going nowhere.
What about the moderators? What about Margaret Brennan?
Every one of them is going to be exactly the same because these people come from sort of an insular group of people that smell their own exhaust, and they think of themselves as bright type people. One of the other problems, by the way, Kevin, doesn't get talked about enough. And you've seen this. You've seen this personally. There are a lot of members of the media who want to be considered cool to the elite class so they get to go to the cocktail parties. In Washington, D.C., the cocktail party, in being invited to the right party, is huge. If you are a U.S. Senator or a Congressperson, you do not have to pay for your own meal because there are free meals. There are cocktail parties. There are things going on every day of the week, and sometimes for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And being a media person, to get to these events, most of them automatically co-opt their whatever semblance of morality they have in their bodies, in their corrupt, blackened souls, that allows them to go out and cover these people in a way that they should be covered. Again, it's the deal with media is this. You want to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. Anyone who's in Congress, anyone who's the President of the United States, they are the comfortable. The American taxpayer, we are the afflicted. And by the way, I never complained when people asked Trump, when he was President of the United States, tough questions. It's what should happen with every President of the United States. They should all answer very tough questions. They all should be pushed. And that's important.
Yeah, instead of comforted, our great friend Peter Thiele joining us. How do you evaluate what's happening with the disaster area relief, and how big of an impact could it have on the election, sir?
Well, it's obvious that what has happened in North Carolina especially is so devastating. I'm not besmirching what happened to the good people in Georgia and South Carolina and Tennessee, but you have towns that were erased in North Carolina. And what I don't understand about, obviously, Georgia and North Carolina are swing states. Seemingly, you would think that the Democrats would have been on the ground there. Kamala Harris, Dougie, Timmy Walz would have been on the ground almost immediately as once everything was safe there. They have not been. They have ran. And I just remember back to 2004 where everybody was on George W. Bush for flying over Katrina's recovery instead of being on the ground immediately. The mainstream media, they are silent on the lack of response. And Joe Biden actually saying this line: well, there's no cell service and no power. We'll tell them to use a telephone. Yeah, and old helpful hint, Joe Biden. Nobody has a telephone anymore.
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah. Yeah, it is fascinating to see how this plays out. What about Jack Smith's revelations, the October surprise? What do you make of that, Peter Thiele?
It's meaningless at this point. It's Jack Smith, obviously, and the U.S. Justice Department under Merrick Garland have become political hit squads instead of looking for justice. If Donald Trump was truly guilty of these crimes, they would have gone to indict him in 2021. They did not indict him until he entered the race to run to win the presidency back.
And we've never seen anything like this. By the way, our great friend Peter Thiele joining us, Kevin Miller in the Morning, KIDO Talk Radio, talking about politics and branding and everything else that matters. But we've never seen anything like this. Again, as someone who is a great talent and you're a great coach of talent, you should have been a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Maybe you would still like to be. Maybe you are. You take a look at Donald Trump, sir, and you think to yourself, what is he? Most of us would have pieced out and, gone to the Oregon coast or Orange Beach or something of that nature, but he continues to fight.
I have had, I've been in the room with Trump once, and it was about 2012. Never met him. But I was in the room with him and Melania. But I've met these people that live for challenges. Warren Buffett, who's in his 90s, is still running his corporation, Berkshire Hathaway, on a daily basis. You have Rupert Murdoch, who just in the last couple of years has stepped back a little bit, but from all reports is day-to-day running his empire. Guys that get and gals that get to that level, one of the reasons why they're so uber successful is that they don't know the word quit. They may have things fail. They may have things not go as well, but they don't know quit. And most of us, and quite frankly, if I'm being honest, this is me, and probably most of the people listening to KIDO right now, is that, we look for the day that one day we'll be able to finish our careers and whatever it may be, get a cabin in the woods, be on a beach, and live out our golden years in peace, without stress and without huge challenges other than aging. A guy like Trump, Warren Buffett, you look at Elon Musk, I don't know if that guy sleeps. And they're built differently. And I am really kind of inspired by them because, yeah, you're right. Donald Trump would have quit. Normal people would have quit a long time before that.
Yeah. When you were part of the New York media scene, what was that like? How is it different from all the other places that you've worked?
It's kind of an interesting deal. When I went into the New York media, one of the things people from like you, Kevin, and other people that I've known from different things saying, wow, the talent must be so incredible. And I'm going, no. I said, actually, the talent is no better. Most of the people that get into New York media either went to Columbia Journalism School or they went to Syracuse. They worked outlier from the big market TV stations or radio stations, and they eventually got the call. That's the majority of people in New York media. The interesting thing about New York, again, another place for dinner parties and stuff like that, is that I had the opportunity to go to a couple of cocktail parties where there were a lot of hedge fund guys. a lot of the Wall Street high-end type stuff. And they're all sort of the same, Kevin. They all come up to you and say, hi, I'm Joe Blow. I went to Dartmouth. I'm Joe Blow, and I went to Wharton. And that's how they introduce themselves. Hi, I'm Peter Thiele. I went to, I went to Ham and Egg or U. And people get just gobsmacked about these guys and gals who have these uber exclusive educations. And believe me, I'm all about education. I'm all about that. I have found that their conversation are as vapid as any conversation I've ever had. I had the opportunity, and I got invited to go to the Harvard Club for breakfast one time. And I've had breakfast at Waffle House with the truckers.
Right.
I found the conversation with the truckers to be much more interesting. I found them much better read. I found no pretentiousness. I found real conversation with real people. And when I've been around those people at the high end, most of them are just playing like they're smart. And if you have to play like you're smart, you're a moron.
A couple final thoughts for our great friend Peter Thiele joining us on KIDO Talk Radio. Did you meet Bobby Axelrod while you were there in New York, from Billions?
No. I was at a party with Rupert Murdoch. I met him.
No way.
Yeah.
And knowing you just walked right up to him.
Absolutely. And it was a party he was hosting. It was for a media thing, for a book that he published. And why I was invited, I have no frickin' idea. So I went up, introduced myself, introduced my wife at the time, had a brief conversation with him. He couldn't have been more pleasant, but he was a tad bit aloof. I got to meet Bloomberg, who is also a little bit aloof. John Katsimatidis, who is a big grocer, who's now gone into media, who owns a refinery. He is the least pretentious of the billionaires I've gotten to be around. He's in the I'm happy to be here club. Couldn't be happier.
Peter Thiele, a final question for you, since media is your life. Does Fox News miss Roger Ailes, and what do you make of Newsmax?
Roger Ailes probably stayed too long. It had to evolve. He obviously brilliantly built it and was okay. He had a problem. He was a little bit of a sexual harasser. Who hasn't been? No, I'm joking. I think that it goes through. My issue with Newsmax is that they have all the tools there, but to be that all, that they don't have the infrastructure. If there's a breaking news story, if there's something really big going on, don't turn on Newsmax. They likely won't even be mentioning it. They don't have the infrastructure with local TV stations, local reporters, local stringers throughout the country. The commentary is very nice. I know people who work there. They love it. But when I'm looking at a news operation, I want to know if all of a sudden there's a school shooting, or if all of a sudden there were shots fired at a former president. I want them to be wall-to-wall, boots on the ground, talking about it.
Well, it is amazing how far they've come. Chris Reddy has done a good job. Anything else you'd like to share with us? How can we get a hold of you to read your thoughts and your opinions, sir?
Vote no on ranked choice voting. It sucks. It's the Democrats' plan to the elected Democrat club instead of actual democracy. And you can contact me at Peter Thiele, at PeterThiele on the X. I always appreciate interacting with KIDO listeners. And as always, Kevin, always a conversation. Always enjoy your conversation. Give me a call, by the way, in the next couple of days here. I have something to share with you.
I certainly will, sir. And we apologize for not getting you on at your usual slot. We'll make sure we don't do that again.
Sounds good, my friend.
Thank you, Peter. Take care.
Yep, thank you. Bye-bye.
Right, bye-bye. Our great friend Peter Thiele. Always appreciate his insightful and analysis. KIDO Talk Radio. And earlier we were discussing red light cameras and red light specials and TLC. Good morning, Pro-Life.
Yeah, right. Well,
what do you make of that Peter Thiele guy, by the way?
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. I'd like to know what he thinks about God. I'd like to know what he thinks about Jesus Christ. That'd tell me a lot about him.
Well, we'll ask him that the next time we have him on, sir.
Yeah, his motive is, making a living being a media dude. But anyway, I'd like to know if his motive is truth or being a big shot. So anyway, about the red light thing, I think it revolves around whether they're doing it for revenue or for safety. And so the motive of the people behind this, I think it's revenue. And if it's revenue, it's not right. They have to show that the red light system, traffic cameras, really are saving accidents and lives. And if it isn't doing that, then I'm not for it. But I don't know. I'm not this Mr. Statistics on the accidents and all of whatever's going on. You'd have to go to the police departments, and they'd have to keep statistics on that. But by the way, anyway, and maybe they don't keep very good statistics. But anyway, I want to say something generally about all of the problems in the world. The problems we're having in the world are because Jesus Christ is not in our hearts and minds and in our whole communities. And we have fake Christianity. And fake Christianity ruins Christianity. And you take like the United Church of Christ, the ELCA, Episcopals, Methodists, and there's a lot of them. And they just are traditional, kind of go to church on Sunday, and a lot of people, Mormons, Catholics, Baptists, all kinds of people. It's just a Sunday kind of a thing. It's
now you're calling out people. Look, I know a place where you can go to church and you can have a cup of coffee in church and you can just kind of sit out and listen to the band. And it's one of the more popular churches in our area.
Yeah, that's it. Well, you go to church to get a cup of coffee and listen to the band.
I think you should go there and start calling in the hellfire and the brimstone.
No, you don't want to do that. You just want to tell them that, listen, in the next world, do you want to just live with the people that drink coffee and listen to the band, or do you want to live with the people that say, hey, Grandma so and so, or this old lady down the street somewhere, she can't mow her lawn. She has weeds all over the place. Her house needs painted. Let's do something about that. Or let's start a Christian-based business where everybody's going to be a Christian, there's going to be Christian morals, and we're going to take care of our health, education, welfare, recreation, and medicine. But you don't hear any of that. But that's what's going to happen in the next world. It isn't going to be, fake Christianity.
Okay, pro-life, we covered that. We continue on. Let's go to our friend Ron Grant. He's standing by.
Paid for by Ron Grant, your safer money specialist.
Ron, good to have you with us. What's going on today?
Thank you, buddy. Good morning. Well, it's money. We gotta protect the money, especially in this economy, the wild rides up and down. According to the Stanford Center of Longevity, Kevin, individuals living today will exceed the average life expectancy in the 21st century by additional 30 years. It's called longevity planning, and I don't know if people have planned for it, but my clients have. Here's some questions for you. Do you have a lifetime guaranteed out of the risk and the fees of the Wall Street casino? Will you outlive your money in your retirement plan, your 401k, your 403b, etc.? And how bad will the next 08, 09 affect your retirement living? See, my clients and I, we sleep at night, Kevin, knowing that we can't lose our principal and we can't lose our gains. Yet we get to participate in some of the upside of Wall Street, but never the downside. And we have that lifetime income. Top 1% of our nation gets income from multiple sources. Why wouldn't you?
Ron, how can people get a hold of you?
Oh, easy. Got a great educational website I put together for people. There's articles there that they can read, videos there that they can take a look at, and then they can email me from the site if they like. And that's safermoneyspecialist.com. Or let's have a phone conversation right here in the Treasure Valley about your longevity planning. It's 208-660-1372.
Ron, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Paid for by Ron Grant, your Safer Money Specialist.
Pam in Boise joins us now with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you for the call, Pam. Good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. It's been a while since I've called in, but this morning I'm so outraged that I said, all right, I'm calling in. Couple things. I'll be quick, but with Peter Thiele, he's so surprised that they picked Tim Walz. I mean, if people don't understand pattern recognition, let me tell you, Obama needed somebody stupider than him, and he picked Biden. Biden needed someone stupider than him, and he picked Kamala. And Kamala needed someone stupider than her, and that's how we got Tim Walz. But that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling because the biggest story in the country right now should be what's happening in North Carolina with the FEMA funds. I mean, Harris finally gets on TV yesterday and says that they can apply for $750. You've got to be kidding me. First of all, how are they going to even apply for it? They're flooded. And Mayorkas comes out and says that FEMA doesn't have enough money. Well, guess what? Now we know where all this money came from for these illegal aliens, and yes, they're illegal aliens, where they got all their gift cards and where all their funding came from. They have funneled $1 billion out of FEMA money to pay for these people. It is an absolute outrage, and how anybody can vote for this does not know what time it is in this country. So when you go in and you cast your vote, I want everybody to think about one thing. Donald Trump has raised money for these flood victims, and Kamala Harris raised money for BLM rioters. And that's what time it is in this country. And how anybody can vote for this does not understand where we are in this country.
Pam, appreciate the call. Thank you.
Thanks, Kat.
We appreciate her. She needs to call in more often. Uh-oh. It's this guy. Lee Joe joins us now. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, sir.
How about those red light cameras coming in?
I want to hit on that because it's all related. But the response in the east to this hurricane, the absolute failures of FEMA, like I said, nothing the government does is coordinated, relevant, or helpful to the people anymore. There's volunteer helicopters out there doing search and rescue missions actively and taking supplies to people. And Kamala comes in for a visit, and they shut down the entire airspace for 7 hours of daylight when these people are trying and literally rescuing people still. And she's here. We have to stop this rescue effort. We're not seeing at all what's actually going on in North Carolina because the media is keeping it shoved down so that Kamala doesn't look as horrible and as incompetent as she is. There's the Cajun Navy's out there doing their thing, but FEMA has taken control of areas, And now you can't haul your trash to the dump from the hurricane that just wiped you out because FEMA will be there in 6 to 8 months to clean it up for you. And they've literally told private contractors, just haul it back to the place where you found it and dump it in a pile. It's that bad. Your government is in that much control. A fire chief tells a helicopter to stop flying people into where he is, tells him he's going to be arrested because the fire chief doesn't have control of the rescue. And literally there are 2 people who still need to be helicoptered out. And the fire chief's threatening arrest for a civilian helicopter. Your government is out of control, which relates exactly back to cameras in Boise. Remember, Mayor McLean and Kamala Harris are card-carrying communists, literally card-carrying communists. You have a
now, what do you mean when
right.
card-carrying communists? Have you seen the cards that they're carrying, allegedly?
I've seen them. I've seen her celebrate communist holidays.
Well, that's not being card-carrying. That'd be not literally a card-carrying communist, though. Maybe she's a closet commie.
That doesn't make you closet. That makes you out.
But she doesn't have. She doesn't have a card.
Well, I don't know if they issue cards.
Yeah,
does the Republican Party issue cards?
I'm not really. Hold on. I'm not really in the good graces with the leadership of the Republican Party, so I couldn't tell you.
Okay, well, I'm a Republican, or I've been accused of it.
I've been a Republican my entire life, but I think I'm on double secret probation thanks to them, so I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
I think you and I lack the purity test with them, but oh well.
Well, one of us will do whatever the King's men say, whether or not it's a violation of the right.
Back to red light cameras, because we only have 27 minutes here.
Yeah. The red light camera, you have what rights? You have a right to life and liberty, and that means you have a right to travel. You also have a 4th right, which prohibits the government from searches and seizures. Those cameras are an illegal search, and we can give up all the rights we want for safety. Remember, we've been warned of that. If you give up your rights for safety, you will have neither. And now we have these cameras for our safety. Well, that Fourth Amendment right to to make yourself secure in your persons does not give the government a right to take a picture of you in your vehicle, which is a search, going about what is your right to do, pursuing your life, your liberty, and then hunting you. They may be hunting you by mail, but then hunting you down for a victimless crime, which 99.99% of this is a victimless crime. Oh, but it'll save us from one wreck. There will be wrecks. There always are. This is intrinsic risk. Your safety is not guaranteed. Only your rights can be protected. Your safety is only relevant to your own action or the actions of others. But this giving up your safety, giving up your rights for safety.
Well, look, nobody gave it up. The Queen decided. She decided, and her useful idiots on the city council approved it. So I guess the game's over. Wormer won.
Correct. Yep. Fourth Amendment. Those are illegal and unconstitutional. It is not right. And
well, I think you've said that. You're repeating yourself, which is not very entertaining.
And what are her enforcers and this corrupt legal system that we're rolling under? What are they going to do? They're going to say, "Oh yeah, well the mayor said so."
Well, you got Kent and ACHD taking orders from the mayor, so we'll talk to him next hour, Lee Joe. Mike and Boise, hang on, quick break. Kevin Miller and his willingness to go along with them, as well as the entire ACHD staff, coming up next hour. Let's go to Mike in Boise with Kevin Miller. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
Well, I'm glad that people are talking about this local topic, the whole red light camera thing in Boise. As Bill O'Reilly would say, what say you?
I agree. Local is good. That's my thing. But I want to mention one other thing first, and I'll throw a teaser out. So this red light thing to me, Colonel Jessup started talking in my ear, Few Good Men. And he had the line, phone calls and footlockers, please tell me that you have something more. And I'll get back to that. But on a more serious note, so a friend of mine at the gym told me this morning, but don't ask me to define it. She's a geomorphologist. They study rivers and stuff. So she was actually back in South Carolina a week or so, or a week before the hurricane, something like that. And so one of the rivers that they were studying was in the area that's so heavily hit in South Carolina. And that river, when she measured it, was going 350 cubic feet per second. I know I'm getting technical, but I'm trying to make a big point here. Well, that thing peaked at 35,000, two orders of magnitude greater. And one of those other a bigger river that was at 1,000, it was measured at 150,000 cubic feet per second. We're talking about those rivers going up 10 feet in an hour. So I only followed the results of what's going on there. And by the way, the caller yesterday that gave us the first-hand report, that was good. But I thought mountainous territory, okay, well, how often do they get flooded? So, okay, fine, 500-year flood couldn't be that bad. But those numbers my friend told me this morning, that's huge. That all of a sudden put everything in perspective about the damage that was caused and how quick it happened. And then piggybacking off of Lee Joe, so I asked my friend, well, they didn't see this coming? And so I guess it happened quick and all that, but no, they didn't do a good job of predicting this level of damage and the impact in that area of, like what I told you, 2 orders of magnitude in the rate of flow of these rivers. And then on the news this morning, the first, it was at 7:30, they said it, but the Mayorkas quote wasn't on the latest news report on the 7:30 or 8:30 break. FEMA's running out of money. That's a quote. You ought to get that soundbite on. How does that happen? How do we give another $8 billion to Ukraine and everywhere else it's spent? How are they running out of money? And that's the excuse for not providing service to devastated communities? How does that work?
Well, because we have everybody addicted to TikTok. And nobody's using their brains. Here we have so many people suffering. And you remember the attention Katrina got. This seems to be like Katrina, but they've shut off the communication from the people.
Well, again, I don't know what you tell me what you think. I mean, I gave you those 2 numbers when my friend told me that. It's like, holy cow. That puts it in perspective. And so the government knows about these numbers. So how do you not kick it up a notch to respond to the communities that were affected by something that huge?
They're either incompetent or complicit, or we'll throw in one more. They don't care.
Yeah.
And it comes back to who is running the place. Is it senile Joe? And he's just meandering around and people are waiting for him to come up with some decree?
He's just a puppet. So I guess the marionette switched over to Kamala. I guess that's how it works.
Or it's Obama, and look, they see some political victory in hosing the people of North Carolina.
I don't know. Well, but what's your personal opinion about the numbers I just told you? Is that kind of amazing in a bad way?
It certainly is. I'll look for the Mayorkas clip right now.
Yeah, and that as well. And so I think that needs some visibility, and we can't lose sight of what's going on there. In terms of traffic,
580 KIDO. We're joined by ACHD Commissioner, wait for it, Kent Goldthorpe, everybody. Ba-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da.
I'm going to charge you double my regular talent fee.
Well, we've got your plaque for Employee of the Month here.
Oh, good. Just restore my parking place as well, and I'll be happy.
We would love to have you back. So how you been? We've been talking about you.
Just fine. Hasn't been a whole week since I was on last, but, we try to create some news so that you consider important to have me on for a little embarrassment.
I know. You and I were going back and forth. I said, I don't see a release on Mayor McLean ordering you guys to put in the red light cameras. You go, you need a press release? And I go, well, I'm not going to hang out at the Boise City Council meetings, but apparently they didn't issue a release either.
Yeah, I didn't see anything. I didn't know how we were going to handle it. I didn't know if you were lurking in the Zoom meeting or anything else. So, anyway, it's out there, and we weren't ordered to do anything. I think you do know that, though.
So, for people that aren't familiar with this, why don't you tell us what's going on?
Well, what's going on is the incidence of problems, injuries, deaths, permanent disabilities, and everything else that come from people absolutely wantonly running red lights with impunity has reached an end as far as what we can do in law enforcement. ACHD can't do anything. We do happen to own all that hardware that's hanging over the intersections and streets, and the city of Boise finally came to us and asked us if they could do a pilot project, which they really haven't gotten too far into the weeds about, because I don't know if they expected to get a yes or a no, but they're going to put some of cameras at their expense onto some of the mast arms or in certain intersections in downtown Boise, out there at Vista and Overland, maybe in a few other places, and try this out. You've heard from me and many of your other listeners about how absolutely ridiculous the situation is with red light runners right now. I can sit at Franklin and 10 Mile and watch 4 or 5, well, I'll go 4 because that's the most I've been able to count. 4 vehicles run the red light absolutely after it's turned. They don't even enter the intersection till after it's turned red, and nothing's ever done. And the last time I saw that, there were 3, but there was a police vehicle, I won't tell you from which agency, sitting there at the intersection who did nothing either. And so the desire to see people run the red lights for whatever reason hasn't been dealt with. And what Lee Joe and some others don't understand about the Constitution, and this hasn't been litigated, so his interpretation isn't any better than anybody else's, but his desire to break the law with impunity is not a Fourth Amendment issue. There are other Fourth Amendment issues that I've been a part of, having been in government for a while, but I won't bring them up today. They're pretty embarrassing to the agencies that were trying those stunts. But anywho, this isn't one of them, Lee Joe. What's going to happen is that the cameras, when they do this, there cannot be any tickets of any kind whatsoever issued unless a sworn peace officer, whether it's a deputy sheriff, a police officer from the city of Boise, which will be that, in this case, that's what will happen. They have to look at that and ensure that they can absolutely defend the infraction that they just witnessed in court without any question before they send a ticket. They're not going to waste the time of the court. They're not going to waste the time of the city or anyone else to send a ticket that won't stick. Now, if somebody thinks that that's illegal, then they're invited to change the law. There is no law against this in the state of Idaho. At least that's what we've been told, and
yes,
we have asked. I have asked personally in public meetings, and there is no law
providing that it's okay to do. So that's why this is a pilot project. It may stir up the hornet's nest. I've had a couple of elected officials tell me that they are against this. They didn't say a single thing about why. They're probably feeling like Lee, Joe, and that would be embarrassing for me to say. But go ahead.
No, I appreciate that, and we're going to have a further discussion on this. Do you have any time to join us tomorrow on this?
Sure.
Okay. 9 o'clock tomorrow, does that work for you, or 7 o'clock?
That's fine. Now you can line up 3 or 4 people to get on with you and whip on this, right?
That we want to tease it so we can have a proper running over the bus of you, Kent, if that's okay.
That would be okay with me.
Well, so tomorrow at 9 or 7, which is it?
Well, you'll have more people listening at 9, right?
Not necessarily.
Okay, well, we go for 7.
All right, Kent. We will have you on at 7.
Okay. See ya. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right. Kent Goldthorpe defending red light cameras. Coming up next, the Attorney General, Raul Labrador. Good morning. You know, the media is always talking about your exploits, so we always love having you on every couple weeks.
The media loves me.
They do. They're obsessed with you. They always have been. So what would you like to discuss, uncensored, unfiltered, sir?
You know, I actually really enjoyed the debate. Mm-hmm. I thought that J.D. Vance did an amazing job. I thought it was great. And it's funny. I'm an old conservative. You know, I actually believe in fiscal conservatism and all those things. And there are some things that J.D. Vance believes in that he's kind of a more big government Republican than I am. But I have never seen a candidate just explain what he believes in such a deft and successful way. And he did it with a smile on his face. And it's something that I always tell conservatives. And, you know, this is an old saying, I'm a conservative, but I'm not angry about it.
Right.
And I wish more conservatives would learn that. You know, because sometimes we just appear to be so angry all the time. And it's good to be a conservative and to have a smile on your face. He almost had a little wink, you know, and a nod to the audience when he would hear the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, try to say something that was so inane and so unimpressive, and he didn't. Like, I probably would have just tried to go after him for those crazy things, and he didn't do that. And I thought that was quite effective in the way that he communicated.
Yeah, I think it's something that we haven't seen. Perhaps what George Bush II always tried to do, but wasn't nearly as brilliant as conveying that. He was a conservative, but J.D. had just the niceness about him and said, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for this. Really, we all, I can agree with the governor. We're going, no, don't agree with him. He's the enemy. And then you had the other side. You had Governor Walz saying that he's friends with school shooters, which he hasn't corrected, which was an odd phrase. And then he's a knucklehead.
Yeah. I mean, he did kind of correct it. There was an interview yesterday where he explained that what he meant, and I think it was obvious what he meant, that he was friends with victims of school shootings.
Yeah.
But it just showed how nervous he was. And the biggest problem that I have with Walz, and I've met people like this in my life, that they just exaggerate everything about their lives. And the stuff that they have done is not good enough. They always have to exaggerate, which tells you something about their character, and it tells you something about their ability to process ideas and to make decisions. And that's why Tim Walz should be nowhere near the White House. He should be nowhere near decisions that are being made, because he's one of these people that will always exaggerate things in a way about important things that are just not really... it shouldn't really be exaggerated. He exaggerated about his record. You know, I didn't serve in the military, so I have a very hard time, going after somebody who served for 24 years in the National Guard. But he always had to exaggerate his rank. He had to exaggerate whether he was in war. He had to exaggerate whether he went to Tiananmen Square.
Yeah.
And it's something that just tells you that it's just a tendency. And then I didn't know about this Tiananmen Square thing until the debate. And he just continues to, and he's just kind of an awkward, person, and he just looked really, really nervous. And it was clear that J.D. Vance was in control, that he understood what was happening, that he understood the issues. But the one that frustrates me the most is the immigration issue. Mm-hmm. The media continues to say that all these people are here legally, the Haitians and the people. And the reality is that they didn't let J.D. Vance explain what's really happening. And what's really happening is that the Biden administration created this new program where you can go on an app, and on this app, you can apply to come into the United States on TPS, temporary protected status, which is technically a legal status, but it's a legal status that is created by the president. So what they have done is they have created something that Congress gave to the president, an ability to bring people to allow people to stay in the United States. If there's a disaster of some kind in their home country, they've allowed these people to, that's how TPS was used in the past. And now they're actually letting people apply for that TPS status from outside of the country. And that's why they're claiming that these people are here legally when they're really just here illegally. They just allowed them to come in through this new created process that is not really what the law intended to do. And I think that's abominable. I think, bringing all these people into the United States they have an agenda. And I think, it's one of the main reasons that I support Donald Trump, and I hope that he wins.
As someone who has extensive experience litigating the immigration system, obviously we want to have secure borders, we want assimilation, we want a safe and strong America, and we want people that come here legally, and you've worked with them. What is your solution, and does this go back to your days in Congress?
We tried really hard when I was in Congress. We actually had a bill that would have fixed all the problems at the border, would have just sealed off the border in a way that only people who were coming here legally would have come. We would have given Border Patrol all the tools that they needed. And once all those things were put in place, then it would have allowed, at the time, this was almost 7 years ago at the time, 6 years ago, at the time it would have allowed some of the people that were here illegally to go through a legal process that they would have been able to become residents of the United States. And that was rejected by the Democrats. It was rejected by the president at the time when I was negotiating these things. It was Obama. And I couldn't get them because it actually put enforcement first. And the problem that we have every single time that you have Republicans negotiate on immigration is that the Democrats are very smart. They put the amnesty first with promises of enforcement later. And my bill said, no. Let's do the enforcement mechanisms first, and then we can have a process for people to go through a legal immigration process. And they always reject that. And this fake bill that they just had, that the Democrats keep talking about in Congress, what it would have done is it would have actually put into law this process that we're talking about that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are using to bring the people from Haiti and other places. It would actually enshrine that into law, and it would have made it easier for presidents, especially Democrats, to bring millions and millions of people here without proper border enforcement. And then if you listen to what they say, they keep saying that it would have allowed adjudications to go to process faster because we need to adjudicate these cases. What it would have done, it would have put all these people into the immigration judicial system, and then allowed them all to stay because that's what they want. They want them to go through this process quickly and make them all legal. And the process of asylum was a process that we've used for years, and asylum was only supposed to be if you were persecuted in your home country. And now we're giving everybody asylum regardless of what's happening in their home country.
As a constitutionalist, our great friend, the Attorney General Raul Labrador, joining us, what do you make of DACA and the Supreme Court's decision about DACA? Again, we can speculate as fans, but you've been in the arena about DACA and the challenges of DACA.
Well, the challenge is that when we don't enforce the law, then you allow a bunch of people to be here for a long time, and then it pulls at your heartstrings, right? That these people have been here for a long time. There was actually a debate this week in Virginia between the two U.S. senatorial candidates, and Hung Cao is the Republican nominee who's going against Tim Kaine, and his family were Vietnamese refugees from the war in Vietnam. And he says something that I've never heard anybody say it in this way, and I thought it was so wise. He said, if you want to live the American dream, you should be willing to live and abide by American laws. And he said, so if your first step is coming to the United States illegally, that's not living the American dream. And I just thought that was a beautiful way to say it, is we definitely need to ensure that people that are coming here, they're coming here because if you think about those refugees from Vietnam.
Right, on the boat.
On the boat. They were coming here because they wanted to live the American dream. They wanted to live by the standards that we set in our Constitution, in our founding documents, because they were looking for that freedom that only America can provide. And now we're just letting people in here left and right that they just want a better livelihood, and they're not really willing to live by the American ethos. And I think that's a problem.
Yeah, and it's a growing problem under this administration. Now, ranked choice voting, are you allowed to comment on that?
Well, I have said publicly on ranked choice, we had a lawsuit. The courts did not agree with me. I was disappointed that the courts did not agree with me. But what I can say is that it's important for people to know that there's two different things in the initiative. If you look at all the advertising from the ranked choice voting proponents, they don't even call it ranked choice. They just call it open primaries. And they say something that is really not true. They say, let's go back to the system that we had before they closed the primaries. That's not what this does. And the state Supreme Court actually said, in fact, they rejected the label of open primaries when they wanted to call it an open primary, because they said that this is not the same system that we had 12 years ago. So it's important that everybody who's thinking about voting for this, that you understand that, number one, is not an open primary system, that it is a top four system. They call it jungle primaries in other states, or a top four system for the primary. And then it has a ranked choice component in the general election. And ranked choice has so many problems that in Alaska, which was the last state that adopted it, they're going to get rid of it this year because they don't like the way it works. It's also been said by the Secretary of State that it's going to cost the state about $25 to $40 million to implement. There's all sorts of problems with ranked choice voting in the states that use it. In one city, I just read recently, one city, the person who received, I think it was 17% of the initial vote, ended up winning the election, because after you go through all the machinations of ranked choice, of ranking and trying to figure out who got what votes and who dropped off, the person who got 17% of the vote ended up winning that election. So I think people need to really consider whether we have a clean system of elections in the state of Idaho. And I think both the Secretary of State now and the previous Secretaries of State have tried really hard to keep it clean. We have the legislature has ensured that we have ballot integrity in the state. It's one of the safest states to vote in. And this system brings something new that Idaho has never had and that other states are struggling with when they have implemented it.
The Attorney General, Raul Labrador, joining us. Kevin Mill in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. So, let's go back to the closed primaries. You were involved in making that happen back in the day, right?
So when I was in the legislature, I actually introduced a bill to close the primaries.
Right.
But that bill was rejected by the legislature. Then there was a lawsuit by the Republican Party, and the federal judge here in Idaho, who is no conservative, said that the closed primaries, that the Republican Party or any party can decide if they want to open or close their primaries, and that has been decided. That has been decided by the U.S. Supreme Court, that parties can determine whether they want to open or close the primaries. Now, some states have instituted this top 2 or top 4 primary initiative, and this courts so far have said that there's nothing unconstitutional about that in the primary process, but that's just a different way of selecting candidates. But just remember, this is very different. This is not just top 2 or top 4 that some states have. Louisiana, for example, is a state that you go to a primary, you pick your top 2 candidates, and the general election, it's a fight between the top 2 candidates, and then whoever gets 50% plus 1 wins that election. This is very different. You're picking a person in the primary top 4, and then in the general election, you're using ranked choice voting, which we don't, that 2 states in the whole nation use, and one of them is trying to get rid of it because it's turned out to be a big mess for them.
The Attorney General with us now. We're very informal here, so how much time do you have left? I don't want to put you on the spot. But
I'm good.
Okay, fair enough. More coming up next. KIDO Talk Radio. Conservatism and the Idaho Republican Party. Obviously, it's under siege. You're in the know with folks. All these people moving into Idaho. How concerned are you about Idaho being diluted when it comes to conservatism in the Republican Party, sir?
My experience, and this is very anecdotal, I don't have any, data, any polling data on this, but my experience is that the vast majority of people that are moving to Idaho are conservative. They're leaving their states because they don't like what's happening in their states, and they want to find what they find a haven in a sea of idiocy in the world.
Right.
And I think that's why they're moving here. And it's very it's frustrating to the media, because I remember about 20 years ago, the media was talking about this flight from California to Idaho. And they were hopeful that all these people were going to bring their bad ideas from California and all these other states. And at the time I was a little bit worried, because that's when we started seeing that huge influx of people from other states. But when I go to neighborhoods, when I go talk, when I'm at Costco, when I'm at Albertsons, when I'm at, whenever I'm out there, I try to talk to people. And most of them just say, man, I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so glad that Idaho is a conservative state. And the irony, and I love the media, because they're always saying that, the legislature is so radical. The legislature does all these radical things, and politicians here are so radical, but yet we continue to be the fastest growing state in the nation. We continue to be the best place to raise a family, the best place for business, all these different things, all these accolades that I actually wish the national media would stop talking, because we don't need to keep growing as fast as we're growing. But we continue to win on every single, it's a beautiful state. It's a great place to raise a family. It's a great place to have a business. So the legislature must be doing something right. But it's all these people that live in Boise, and they all talk to their same 5 friends who don't like the legislature, and they think that everybody thinks like they do. And that's not the way Idaho is. I've had to travel the state from north to south, from east to west, and there's so many people who just love the freedoms that we have here in the state and the ability to just be yourself. So I think Idaho is just a wonderful place to live. And it's one of the reasons that I continue to serve and do the things that I do, because I want to keep it the way that it has been for a long time.
And one of the ways, obviously, one of the most important ways is enforcing laws. I recall the ceremony for slain Deputy Sheriff Tobin Bolter, and you were there.
Yes.
What went on in your mind that day?
Well, first, it was incredible, the show of support from the community and from law enforcement people, but But, I mean, that's one of the great things about Idaho is that the community supports law enforcement. The community supports the laws. I mean, one of the biggest problems that we have nationally right now, the issue that we talked about earlier, immigration, is when a president says that they're not going to enforce the law, everyone knows that you can break the law. Everyone knows that you can, run to the border, you can get in, that they're going to allow you to come in, even though you don't really have standing to come in. The same thing happens in small places like states and cities and counties. If people know that you're not going to enforce the law, they start breaking the law. Is the old broken windows theory, right? That when you start seeing that broken windows are not being fixed and nobody's getting punished for it, you realize that, hey, if they don't have to abide by that law, then nobody else abides by the laws. And I think that's what's great about Idaho is that everybody knows that laws are going to be enforced. And, we could always be better, right? But we tend to go about our business and do the things that are necessary to keep Idaho a strong place to live and a strong place to raise a family. And I think that's why people enjoy it. There's a freedom that you can sense in Idaho and you can feel it in the air, and people enjoy that and they love that. And they don't have to worry about, having to upset other people with the things that they say. They know that they're free to be themselves and to do the things that they need to do.
And then you have, obviously, the state supports law enforcement, which is very different from the states surrounding us. I mean, Utah supports law enforcement. I'm sure Montana does. But, you take a look at California, the defund the police movement. Again, as someone who has sworn an oath to protect the Constitution, it's amazing that you had people, not only in Idaho, but across the country, sir, that, want to defund the police. Okay, congratulations, you defunded the police, now what?
Well, and every state that kind of had that idea, and every politician that had that idea, if you see, they're not talking about that anymore. Because those few cities and counties and states that decided to not enforce the law, and Minnesota is one of them, they realized that when you stop enforcing the law, then bigger things happen. And you saw the riots that happened in Minnesota. My son actually had just left Minnesota. He had graduated with a master's degree from the University of Minnesota and had been living in Minneapolis. And he said it was one of the safest cities that he had ever lived in, and it was a huge city. And about a month after he left Minnesota, the riots happened. And now, all the places that he loved in downtown Minnesota, they're boarded up. Most of the places are closed. So many ugly things happen. And there's a culture that Idaho has that is important to keep, because if we change that culture, you're going to have the same thing that happens in Seattle, that happens in Portland, that is happening in Minneapolis, that turns a place into an unlivable place. And so I just think we need to make sure that we keep that character of Idaho while we still welcome the people that are coming to the state, and hope that they understand that the reason Idaho is such a great place to live is because we're a conservative state that supports each other and supports the law enforcement.
Are you following any of the races across the country? Because you're a political guy. I mean, you're a great family man. You're the attorney general. I mean, but politics, you're in the arena. So do you ever follow any of the other races?
I mean, it depends. I follow some. I'm not as closely as I used to when I was in Congress, because obviously many of those races were my friends that I was serving with. But I try to stay pretty up to date on some of the things that are happening nationally.
No, I was looking at, and again, I'm fascinated with this race in Montana between Senator Tester and Tim Sheehy. And you take a look at, Senator Tester, John Tester, who's been there forever. Donald Trump tried to get him out in 2018, and he's got 40 million. Sheehy's got 10, 15 million. But it's a toss-up. You were watching the Virginia race. I was watching the Montana debate the other night, which was very entertaining. But, you have the state Montana that, we could have had somebody like that here, and that's why Idaho is so great. But what do you make of that race at all?
It's interesting. I just watched a little bit of the debate, and I saw some of the commentary on the debate, and according to at least what I was watching, looks like he's ahead by 6 points in the latest polls, which is interesting because Tester is a very difficult Democrat to defeat because he has been so long in office and is well respected. And I've actually met Tester a few times. I've talked to him. He's a very nice guy.
Charismatic guy.
Very charismatic and kind of a good old boy, in the good sense of the word of the phrase that he's very easy to talk to and people really like him. So it's interesting to see that he's actually in some danger if those polls are correct, that he's down by 6 points. So, and that's such an important race because if we want to take over the Senate, we need to win races like this one. We can't lose these races by a small amount. So if Republicans want to take over, it's one of the most important races in the nation, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens on election night.
Yeah, no, it is fascinating when you take a look at that, and some of the barbs. You've been in these high-profile debates. Heck, you were a regular on Meet the Press. It's so funny because people don't remember that your life back then. And again, being the groupie that I am, I remember that, and that was an honor and quite a challenge. But on one hand, you have Tim Sheehy going, yeah, well, when you were having steaks, I was serving my country. And then Tester coming back going, well, Tim and his big money friends buying all the land. When you go into a debate, when you're going into, whether it's talking to the reporters here or national reporters, because Idaho is such a big, important place in the state, obviously with the Supreme Court decisions, what goes on in your mind? I mean, reporters say we just want the truth, but obviously when you're conservative, there's always that unfortunate adversarial take that they always seem to have.
So when I go into a debate or even like Meet the Press or any show like that, you do a little bit of research. And I think that's why I was so effective and why they kept inviting me on shows like Meet the Press, because I think sometimes politicians just do talking points. Their staff gives them, these are 3 things that you want to say. And that's what you got to keep repeating again and again and again. And for good or ill, and my staff sometimes looks at me and said, I wish you would follow the talking points. I just answer the question. If somebody asks me a question, I'm going to give you an honest answer about the question. But I'm also always prepared when I go into those shows. I know what the other panelists who are on the show have asked or answered about that topic that we're going to talk about. I kind of prepare like for a trial.
Sure.
Where I know what everybody has said, what their positions are. And I remember one of my first times on Meet the Press, if you remember Chris Matthews.
Yes.
Chris Matthews was a big deal, for a time until he got into a little bit of trouble. And he was going to be on the show, and we were talking about, shutting down the government at one point. And he said, I can't believe that Republicans are doing this. And he went through this whole litany of things that we were asking for in exchange for raising the debt. And he said, and I said, well, you did the same thing when you were working for Tip O'Neill.
Right.
And I said, you guys did everything you're accusing us of doing, you guys did. And he said, what are you talking about? When did I do that? I said, well, I have this article here from the Washington Post that talks about all the things that you guys were demanding for raising the debt limit. Mm-hmm. And his eyes just bulged out because he couldn't believe that I had done that research. And I think that's what you do. You just make sure that you know what people are going to say and what they have said in the past when they're inconsistent.
Well, and again, unlike the liberals of today, a true liberal, Chris Matthews was.
He was. Yeah. He was, yeah. And I think that's why you're seeing people like RFK Jr., like you're seeing Tulsi Gabbard, true liberals who were people. I didn't know RFK Jr., but I know Tulsi Gabbard very well. They were true liberals that I could actually have conversations with. And sometimes even agree. It's what I used to call it the wingnut coalition, when the right wing and the left wing eventually meet because they're agreeing on some civil liberties issues and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I had a lot of friends in Washington, D.C. from the left, Dennis Kucinich, Tulsi Gabbard, who were true old-style liberals that believed in the Constitution and believed in civil liberties, and I could agree with them on some issues. And this wokeism that has taken over the Democratic Party is actually endangering society, endangering our Constitution. I don't know if you saw the New Yorker just said that we have to torch the Constitution. Yep. And we all knew there was going to come a time where the Constitution was in jeopardy. And we are at that time, and I think that's why this election is so important.
More coming up with the Attorney General next, Kevin Miller. We very rarely take calls when it comes to the guests, but we're going to recognize the chair from New Meadows, Idaho, Tea Party Bob, is the Attorney General your favorite Idaho politician, sir?
Well, I have to tell you, he's one of the best. I worked on three of his campaigns.
No. You can't say that. You have told me that you love the Attorney General. You've told me on this air that he is the only one that can save Idaho. Am I wrong?
Oh, no, I believe that totally. Actually, I'm kind of hoping that he'd run in the 24 election. He talks about Idaho and the liberals who have pretty much taken over the Boise area, but he forgets that Meridian used to be a very conservative and Bible area of Treasure Valley, and it has itself turned very liberal, more so than I had expected in the short period of time I've been gone. He's one of the few people who actually understands the laws, who understands what's going on in the state, and who loves it as much as the people who have been here for a long time. And what we need is more of that. The unfortunate part is that we seem to keep electing people who say they're Republicans but vote like Democrats. And until that stops, we're going to continue to take 43% of our state budget from the feds, which is what's happening right now. And every time you take money from them, I think Congressman Labrador will agree, every time you take their money, you owe them something. And they do come to collect with their memorandums of understanding. And that's the unfortunate part. Little thinks he's doing good by taking this money. What he's doing is helping.
Do you have a question for the Attorney General?
Are you going to run for office?
Well, we don't want to. Well, I mean, look, with all respect to the Attorney General, and he can answer that question, but I mean, he came here to talk about policy and stuff. I mean, you're a high-speed guy. I mean, you can do that when you have a one-on-one with the Gem State Patriot. Well, come on, give us something good. Give us a policy question.
Look, the biggest policy question right now is Prop 1. And the fact that he couldn't stop this tells me there's something wrong with our courts, not necessarily with him. And I'd like to know why they're still going to put this on the voters' docket the way they had it, because it still sounds like it's not something that it really is. And are you going to be able to get any of this changed before the election or not?
So it's now up to the voters to decide. I did what I could. My job is to defend all Idahoans. I've been blasted by the media because they're like, you're not listening to the 70,000 plus people who signed the petition. And I'm like, no, I'm listening. I'm looking out for the 1.9 people who did, 1.9 million people who didn't sign the petition. I'm looking out for the interests of the state. I'm looking out for the reality that our state laws say you should not misrepresent things when you're gathering signatures. So I'm trying to protect the integrity of the voting process and the initiative process. I did everything I could, and I think it's up to the voters now to decide whether they think this is a good idea or not. And I just want everybody to look into what it really did, what it's doing in Alaska, what it's doing in Maine. I'll tell you a story, Kevin. I had a really good friend in Washington, D.C. His name's Bruce Poliquin. He makes Mike Simpson look like a conservative. So he was a Republican who was just very, very, very left of center. But he was one of the nicest people that you would ever meet, that you could ever meet. If you hear all the people that are advocating for Prop 1, they're saying that we just want to get rid of the radicals, right? That's what they keep saying. Bruce Poliquin makes me look like a radical. He's one of those people who's just so nice, very left of center. He was the nicest guy. The first person who was defeated in a congressional race by something similar to Prop 1 was Bruce Poliquin. They got rid of him, and they also said that Prop 1, the ranked choice voting was going to bring better elections, more mature elections, people that weren't disagreeing and yelling at each other. They did a number on this poor guy where they tried to say that he was one of the most conservative, he was going to destroy America. So look at the history of what ranked choice voting has done in Maine and has done in Alaska before you go to the voting booth. And you will see that what it does is the way that they can get away with actually electing Democrats in states and congressional districts that usually vote Republican.
Well, does that answer your question there, or are you going to follow up there, Tim Russ, or what?
Well, it does, but my real question is, did the courts do the right thing, or was this, again, another... here's the skinny on this. The Attorney General has already decided this, so now I'm going to get on you here, buddy. No, you're not.
Yeah, well, you're right. Anyway, GemStatePatriot.com, Tea Party Bob, we appreciate you. Thank you for the call.
Take care.
All right, there we have it. You have people, though, that, as we talked about, you have, how many people do you have in your office? And you don't have an army of people, do you?
Well, we have 120 lawyers and 100 staff. But on these kind of litigation matters, we have just one division that works on these issues. And the reality is that we have more things happening in the state and nationally than we have ability to control. But I'm proud of the work that we have done. On Title IX, look at what happened with BSU this past week. Our state sued the Biden administration over their new Title IX rules, and we were the first state in the nation that actually got an injunction against the Biden administration on their new weird interpretation of Title IX, where they were going to define gender in different ways. They were going to allow boys to participate in women's sports. And I'm really proud of these athletes who decided, we're going to stand up for ourselves and our safety, and we're not going to participate in a contest where we could be injured. There's actually videos out there. I used to play volleyball in not team sport, because we didn't have it in team sports in my high school, but that was my favorite sport growing up, both in high school and college. And I played a lot of volleyball. And I have been hit in the face many, many times by very, very good players. And there are videos out there, if you want to look for them, where young women have been hit by male players, where their faces have just been broken in. It's horrendous, the damage that a volleyball can do to your face if you're a young girl who's playing against a male. And I stand up and I applaud the BSU players and the coaches who decided to do the right thing. And it takes an individual. Politicians like me and attorneys general can do the legal battles. But to change the hearts and minds of the people, it takes individuals like these players to stand up and do the right thing. And I just can't praise them enough.
Well, and speaking of protecting children, by the way, the Attorney General, Raul Labrador, joining us here, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Last time we had you on, we had the commander in about, making sure that internet crimes against children stopped here in the state of Idaho. This is something that you reformed that entire department, got those folks rolling and making sure this doesn't happen. We all live in our own cul-de-sacs, whether in reality or in our minds, that can't happen in Idaho. But, that this is happening and it must be stopped.
Unfortunately, it's happening too often. We have sick individuals out there who are looking at child pornography and even, inviting their own children or neighbors or family friends to their children. They're injuring their children. And we have a whole division that's called ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children, where we go after these horrendous individuals that are committing these violent, horrible crimes. So if anybody who's listening who knows something about somebody maybe showing child porn or creating child porn, please call our office and we will make sure that we take care of it. I'm very proud of this unit. They have saved many children. They have arrested many individuals. They're starting to get huge sentences. Our prosecutors are prosecuting these cases. And in fact, two of my attorneys are, and I have to give credit to the U.S. attorney here in Idaho, who also works very hard on this issue. Two of my attorneys are going to be sworn in as AUSAs, Assistant U.S. Attorneys. So my attorneys in the Attorney General's office are going to be able to prosecute some of these cases in federal court, which sometimes has harsher penalties for these horrendous cases. So we're doing a great job. I'm very proud of my division and very proud of the work that they're doing.
Well, and, you bring up the U.S. Attorney. How is your relationship with him?
It's actually been really good. We work on some issues with him. Obviously, we disagree on some things. He's a representative of the Biden DOJ. But on issues like child internet crimes, we work very, very closely. And my investigators work with his investigators. My prosecutors work with his prosecutors, and I have to give him a shout out. And they do a tremendous job on those issues. So it's been actually great. And that's something that maybe I can finish with this. I've always been the kind of person that, hey, when I can work on the other side on an issue, I have no problem doing that. I long for the days where we disagreed with each other without calling each other enemies of the people. And, I've said this many times on your show, Kevin, my mom was a Democrat. And the person I loved the most in the world until I got married and I had children was a Democrat. And she gave me the principle. She was an old school Democrat. She was a JFK Democrat. But still, she was the one who raised me with my values, with my belief system. I am the person that I am today because of her. So I try not to look at the Democrats as my enemy. It's unfortunate that we have turned, especially the media and the Democrats always look at me as the enemy, but I don't look at them as the enemy. I just think they're wrong on a lot of issues, and I hope to convince people on my side to say the right things and to convince people that it's the conservative way that actually makes America strong, America great, and Idaho the place that we all want it to be.
Now, again, Reagan-esque conservative back in the old days.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very different vibe than the Trump vibe today, isn't it?
It's different, but it's a different time.
Yeah.
And I think people forget that. People forget that when everybody claims that Reagan, everybody loved Reagan. Right. That's not true.
Right.
They all thought that he was a warmonger who was just a movie star who was an idiot, that nobody knew what he was going to do. And the reality, I went to watch the movie Reagan, beautiful movie. I cried many times. At the end of that movie, if anybody's seen it, you'll know why. I don't want to ruin it for people, but it was just a beautiful movie. But the reality is that the world thought of him like the world thinks of Trump right now. Now the difference, and so my conservative friends get mad at me when I say this. I always tell people that to be a little bit like Reagan, to be able to articulate conservative principles in a moderate tone, and that's the way I think we.
Shop Macy's VIP sale going on now. Use your coupon or Macy's card and take an extra 30% off the latest fall trends from designers that rarely go on sale. And save 15% off skincare, makeup, fragrances, and more. Plus, shop fall specials for even more great deals on top brands at Macy's. Savings off regular and already reduced prices. Exclusions apply.